Chapter 1007. Nalan Li was also stunned as if he had been struck by lightning. His eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Zhou Xian was so scared that his face turned pale. Cold sweat poured out of his forehead, and his whole body trembled as if he had seen a ghost. Zhou Xian felt as if his soul had left his body. He was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. He wanted nothing more than to kneel down before Jiang Tian. This Kong Teichu is too strong. Lady Wu's eyes were wide open. Her face was full of worship and her heart was beating wildly. Her breathing was rapid. She was like a little fangirl who had seen her idol. None of them were fools. After hearing Jin Yalin's words, they instantly understood what was going on. Jiang Tian had actually gone to the stellar sky domain and returned safely. It was obvious what this meant. The person Jiang Tian had killed back then was not an ordinary person. He was the Dao disciple of the stellar sky palace, Li Xian. There was no possibility of peace talks. There was only one possibility for Jiang Tian to return safely. He had won the stellar sky domain. You are Jin Wanxiong? Jiang Tian's eyes were as cold as lightning. He looked at Jin Wanxiong and asked the obvious. When he met Jiang Tian's cold eyes, Jin Wanxiong was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. His face was ashen as he said in a trembling voice, reporting to Master Kong, "It is indeed this humble one." Jiang Tian had a faint smile on his face as he said mockingly, "How many good sons have you raised? They are all very promising. I killed Jin Zihan. Are you here to avenge him?" This old man does not dare. A trace of regret flashed in his eyes. However, he immediately gritted his teeth and said viciously, "This man offended Master Kong. He deserved to die. No, he should be cut into pieces and skinned alive." It was as if Zhou Xian was not his son but the enemy who had killed his father and clan. Reclusive royalty, isn't that great? Jiang Tian looked at him with interest and said with a smile that was not a smile, "Your son Zhou Xian dares to snatch my Kong Teichu's dojo. Is this your idea? An old man wouldn't dare." Jin Wanxiong could no longer take it. Plop. He knelt on the ground and curled up like a quail. Master Kong, the old man and his family knew nothing about this child's actions. Please forgive us. Everyone's expression changed, and their hearts were filled with complicated feelings. Some were shocked. Jiang Tian had only said a few words, but he had actually forced a royal family leader to kneel and beg for mercy. Some were doubtful. Had Kong Teichu really gone to the star dimension, or was it just a rumor? Even more people felt the sorrow of a fox mourning the death of a rabbit, and their hearts were filled with sorrow. Reclusive royalty, what was the use of having a noble bloodline? In the end, he was still easily suppressed by Jiang Tian. In this world, strength was still the most important thing. Jiang Tian was just a commoner, but he was very powerful. It did not matter whether he had suppressed the stellar sky domain. At the very least, he was the invader who had slaughtered the Holy See and the Brahmin. With the peerless Tianqing school as his backing, no one dared to offend him easily. At this moment, Ying Laozu suddenly cupped his fists and said bitterly, "Kong Teichu, I heard that you went to the stellar sky domain. Do you have any evidence?" "Evidence? So what if I went there? What evidence do I need? Who do you think you are? Do I need to prove it to you?" Jiang Tian flicked his sleeves and snorted disdainfully. "Reclusive royalty, my ass." Jiang Tian did not care at all. "If you are a dragon, you have to coil up. If you are a tiger, you have to lie down and obediently hide your fangs. If you dare to provoke me, I will just slaughter you." Being ignored by Jiang Tian, Ying Laozu's old face turned red. He said coldly, "Master Kang's cultivation is very powerful. If you have the human emperor's token, this old man will bow down to you. If not, this old man would like to learn a thing or two from you." "Ying Laozu, don't be impatient." Yi Tianren hurriedly shouted and flew over. He bowed and cupped his fists. "Master Ying Laozu once gave me pointers on my cultivation. During the late Qing dynasty, he fought against the Western martial experts and protected Wuxia. Please forgive him." Then he said softly, "Master, the enemy is right in front of us. There is no need to kill too many people. Moreover, he is very knowledgeable. He might really recognize the human emperor's token." "You recognize the human emperor's token?" Jiang Tian looked at Ying Laozu in surprise. Then he smiled leisurely and took out the human emperor's token. Suddenly, a surging emperor's aura was released, making Jiang Tian look extremely sacred. He was as powerful as the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors overlooking the world. Everyone felt the monstrous aura and spiritual fluctuation from the human emperor's token. They could not help but tremble. It's really the human emperor's token. Ying Laozu's pupils suddenly shrank in shock. Oh my god, he has the human emperor's token. All the martial experts of the royal family and the dragon protectors looked at Zhang Tian in shock, fear and unwillingness. They could no longer keep calm. The human emperor's token commanded the royal family of Wuxia and the dragon protectors. It was respected by the world and was more important than the imperial jade seal. This was the contract between the reclusive royalty and many ancient Wuxia dimensional worlds. Otherwise, the reclusive royalty would be killed by the dimensional worlds. Who would dare to disobey? Is this given to you by the Stellar Sky Palace Lord? Ying Laozu was old and had a fiery temper. He quickly calmed down and said with a cold gaze, "Don't think that the old man will be afraid of you just because you have the human emperor's token. The old man is not even afraid of Li Longyuan. This old man's cultivation has already surpassed the heaven immortal realm. If not for the fact that the Ying family needed this old man's protection, I would have gone to the Stellar Sky domain long ago and asked that old man Li Longyuan to teach me a lesson." Most of the reclusive royalty were afraid of the Stellar Sky domain and the dimensional worlds. However, Ying Laozu was not afraid. He even hated the multidimensional worlds to the bone. After all, their ancestors had been killed by one of the multidimensional worlds. Surpassed the heaven immortal level? Yi Tianren did not know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and said, "Old ancestor, your strength is only equivalent to the 4th stage foundation establishment." A trace of faintly discernible pride appeared on his face as he shared the honor. He said, "Do you know that Master Kong once killed 600 exalted immortals in the Stellar Sky domain? Those were late-stage foundation establishment experts." Once this was said, the whole place was dead silent. The huge green pine peak was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. What? Master Kong can actually kill exalted immortals. 600 exalted immortals. After a full 5 seconds, everyone seemed to have woken up from a dream. They all sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were filled with shock as if they had seen a ghost. Reclusive royalty had a deeper understanding of the Stellar Sky domain than Yi Tianren. After all, many of their ancestors were agents of the dimensional worlds like the Stellar Sky domain. They were puppets supported by them. They knew that the Stellar Sky domain was an immortal cultivation technique, which was completely different from martial arts techniques. The so-called exalted immortals were late-stage foundation establishment. They had the ability to destroy cities and countries. If they were on Earth, they could wipe out everything. Even the armies of the 5 major countries combined would not be a match for them. One had to know that Zhang Tian, as an Earth immortal, had killed his way through the European Union and forced the Pentagon to submit to him. In their eyes, the Stellar Sky domain was high and mighty. The exalted immortals were like real gods. However, they were actually killed by Zhang Tian. He even killed 600 exalted immortals in one go. This was like a legend. It was shocking. Ignoring their shock, Yi Tianren said slowly with a hint of mockery, "Ying Laozu, Li Longyuan gave the human emperor's decree to my master? You are so wrong. How can he be qualified? What do you mean?" Ying Laozu was confused. Suddenly, he thought of a possibility and said, "You mean, how can this be?" Ying Laozu probably guessed it. That's right. Master Kong can even kill Golden Core experts. Li Longyuan has been killed by him. Yi Tianren was proud. He straightened his back and showed his sharpness like an unsheathed sword. As soon as he said that, everyone present was shocked and they looked at Zhang Tian flabbergasted. It was as if they'd seen an ancient fiend god, and they were filled with both shock and terror. Is this true? Even Ying Laozu was shocked. His hands were trembling slightly. In the dimensional world, even Qin Shi Huang could not resist. Zhang Tian could actually crush them. Everyone was also in disbelief. Zhang Tian's cultivation was strong and his talent was amazing. It was possible for him to get the recognition of the heavenly star small world and get the human emperor's decree. However, Zhang Tian had killed the master of the heavenly star palace and 600 exalted immortals. This would probably shock the entire world. My master killed the path chosen of the Azure Mystic sect. That was Li Longyuan's son. Yi Tianren smiled slowly and said, "The son of the Azure Mystic sect is dead." The hatred of his son's death is absolutely irreconcilable. If Grandmaster Jiang doesn't kill Li Longyuan, how can he get the human sovereign token? Seems that Yi Tianren is right. Kang Teichu really killed 600 deities. Zhu Guanlan, Li Guangyu, Jin Wanxiong, Lady Wu and the other leaders of the royal family were shocked and looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. At this time, Jiang Tian had black hair and black eyes. He was wearing a white robe and his face was elegant. There was no murderous aura in him at all. More than that, Yi Tianren smiled leisurely. Master Kong suppressed the 4 major sects and 3 major cities of the Heavenly Star Domain at the Green Hill Gathering. Thousands of sects submitted to him and were respected as the ruler of the Heavenly Star Domain. He commanded the Heavenly Star Domain and suppressed the entire domain. As soon as he said that, "What?" Like a stone that startled 1,000 waves, everyone exclaimed. Stormy waves were set off in their hearts and they could no longer calm down. Then there was a dead silence. Everyone's eyes almost popped out. They stood there in a daze, motionless as if they were clay sculptures. One person suppressed an entire domain. Chapter 1008. The Stellar Sky Domain had once controlled the change of dynasties and used the emperors as puppets and chess pieces to toy with the world. In the hearts of many royal families, it was like a supreme god that could not be shaken. Now it was suppressed by Jiang Tian with one hand. The Stellar Sky Domain had billions of territories, and its area was equivalent to several Wuxia. Immortals were as common as rain and experts were as common as clouds. They could destroy the Earth Domain in a matter of minutes. Jiang Tian had already controlled the Stellar Sky Domain and was known as the ruler. Didn't this mean that Jiang Tian's influence had completely transcended this world? Thinking of this, everyone looked at Jiang Tian with reverence. It was as if they were looking at a supreme god that stepped on time, carried the sky and controlled the stars and galaxies. An expert like Jiang Tian was simply like a myth or a legend. Not to mention the descendants of the imperial family, even their ancestors who had made great achievements and opened up new territories were unable to shake him. Everyone was stunned. If Master Kong only had the human emperor's token, that old man might not submit. However, Master Kong suppressed the Stellar Sky Domain. The old man is sincerely convinced. Suddenly, Ying Laozu's face turned solemn as he knelt on the ground. From now on, the Ying family is willing to serve Master Kong as our leader. If you have any orders, we will obey without question. Zhu Guanlan, the head of the Zhou family, a descendant of the Great Ming dynasty, was also shocked. He quickly knelt on the ground and said loudly, "From now on, the Zhou family is also willing to serve Master Kong as our leader. If you have any orders, we will obey without question." He was afraid that if he was one step late, Jiang Tian would kill him on the spot. The Li family is willing to serve Master Kong as our leader. The Wu family. One by one the royal family leaders knelt. They were all the family heads of the older generation and even the ancestors. Then it was Nailan Bo and the others. The family heads and leaders of the dragon protection lineage knelt as well. He actually suppressed the entire Stellar Sky Domain. Oh my god. I'm done for. Zhou Xian was so scared that he pissed his pants. His whole body twitched and went limp on the ground like a puddle of mud. The corners of Zhou Xiaoqian's eyes twitched. He was dumbstruck. He was very arrogant. He didn't want to kneel, but when his father Zhu Guanlan gave him a murderous look, his knees went soft and he obediently knelt on the ground. Li Guangkol quickly knelt down after being glared at by Li Guangyu. "Yingsu, what are you waiting for? Kneel down." Finally, under Ying Laozu's rebuke, Yingsu, whose face was full of humiliation and unwillingness, turned from red to black, then from black to white. In the end, there was only desolation and despair left. He slowly lowered his head, bent his knees, knelt on the ground and kowtowed. "Master Kong, I was wrong." The entire Qingsong Peak was completely silent. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Even the warriors of the Tianqing school and the Huaxiaolong formation were deeply shocked. Reclusive royalty and the dragon protection lineage were all kneeling on the ground. Only Jiang Tian was left standing with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked like a real god. At this time, Nailan Li and his 2 brothers, who were kneeling on the ground, felt a roar in their heads. A deep sense of regret rushed to the top of their heads. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. He couldn't wait to give himself a few tight slaps. It turned out that the stellar sky domain which they worshipped like gods had been shocked by Zhou Xian. It turned out that Zhou Xian had promised them a country, a city, a beautiful landscape, mountains of gold and silver, and wealth that would last for generations to come. It would help their cultivation advance by leaps and bounds, allowing them to become immortals and saints and live eternally. All of this was true. Zhou Xian even took out the human emperor's token. Unfortunately, they were blind and short-sighted. They didn't recognize it at all. At this moment, Naran Qinghe finally understood everything. She was wrong, very wrong. She had always thought of herself as smart and intelligent. However, she had made a fool of herself when the imperial family and Zhou Xian were fighting for Sidoni's dojo. The existence that she had to look up to and the immortals who were regarded as gods were just ants that Zhou Xian could easily crush. She had always thought that Zhou Xian was just a commoner who didn't have the qualifications to challenge the dragon protection lineage. At this time she couldn't help but think of Zhou Xian's disdain for Zhou Xian and the entire reclusive royalty. She had thought that Zhou Xian was ignorant of the immensity of heaven and earth. Now she realized that she was a frog at the bottom of a well. She had eyes but failed to see the real face of a real dragon. He could suppress the stellar sky domain and crush the true immortals and high immortals. Why would he care about the Nalan family and the Eisenjoro family? They were just ants. At this time Zhou Xian, Li Guangkol and Ying Su were the most upset. They couldn't accept it at all. Before this, as the leaders of the younger generation of the reclusive royalty, they were the ones who were the most arrogant. They repeatedly spoke arrogantly and refused to accept Zhou Xian. They thought that with the stellar sky domain as their backing, they could compete with Zhou Xian. However, they didn't expect that Zhou Xian had long been the ruler of the stellar sky domain. Zhou Xian only needed to say one word to decide their future and fate. Ascending to the dimensional world. Now it was all over. At this time Hu Qingtian, who was covered in blood, stepped forward and sneered. "Everyone, weren't you going to fight with my master just now? Why are you kneeling now? Are you happy kneeling? Do you think that with the immortals of the stellar sky domain as your backing, you dare to bare your teeth at my master? In fact, the immortals and immortals in your eyes are just Master Kang's dogs." Hu Qingtian's face was full of anger as he roared. "Forget it, old Hua. Don't be angry with them. They are just a bunch of ants." Shen Mange persuaded. Given my master's magnanimity, he might not take these personal grudges to heart. Hu Qingtian's tiger-like eyes were filled with tears as he roared. "But when the Tianqing school and the Long Formation were commanding you, you said that we were not worthy. You acted on your own and ruined our plans time and time again. How many heroes of Wuxia have died because of you? More than 20 grandmasters of Wuxia's martial alliance died. The Long Formation's Green Dragon and White Tiger of the 4 spiritual generals died in battle. 3 of the 8 legions died as well. Many of your royal family members died as well. However, these sacrifices were completely unnecessary. How can you face their souls in heaven?" As soon as he said this, everyone's faces were filled with shame. They wished they could slap themselves a few times in regret. Now it seemed that Zhou Xian had the ability to crush the Holy See and the Brahmin. He was really just practicing. However, this group of troublemakers messed up the battle plan. In the end, they harmed others and themselves. The more Hu Qingtian spoke, the angrier he became. He roared, "Zhou Xian and Nalan Li, you are even more shameless. We were killing the enemy in front, and you were chasing after my master and threatening our dojo." Hearing this, Zhou Xian's handsome face darkened. He revealed a hint of anger and snorted. "You deserve to die." Zhou Xian's faint snort was like a clap of thunder to Jin Wanxiong's ears. His entire body suddenly trembled as his heart trembled and he was horrified to the extreme. Suddenly, his expression became ruthless as he exploded out like a ferocious tiger leaving the mountains, and he grabbed Jin Zixuan's throat. "Father, what are you doing?" Jin Xian screamed in horror. He was scared out of his wits. "Patriarch Jin, what are you?" The others were also shocked and wanted to stop him. "Don't come over," Jin Wanxiong shouted. Then there was a crisp crack. He exerted force in his hand and unceremoniously broke Jin Xian's neck. Jin Xian's head drooped weakly. His eyes were bulging and there was still a hint of shock and fear. He seemed to be unable to believe that he had died in the hands of his own father. Jin Wanxiong's eyes were filled with tears. He slowly let go of Jin Xian and let the body fall to the ground. he said in a trembling voice. Master Kong, this evil creature has offended you. I wonder if you are satisfied with this punishment? Jiang Tian sneered and said nothing as if he had not seen anything. My son has offended Master Kong, so I broke his legs as punishment. I hope Master Kong can forgive me. Zhu Guanlan also got up and walked to Zhou Xian in large strides. With 2 papa sounds she broke his legs. It hurts. Zhou Xian fell to the ground and screamed. She was in so much pain that her eyes were about to crack. Then Li Guangyu followed suit and broke Li Guangko's limbs as an apology to Jiang Tian. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, and angered Master Kong. Master Kong is already very kind to not kill you. Ying Su was also slapped repeatedly by Ying Laozu. Half of his face was smashed and his canine teeth flew everywhere. Logically speaking, the matter should have come to an end at this point. Even Jiang Tian nodded, seemingly very satisfied. Suddenly, Jin Wanxiong's eyes were dull. He swung his long saber and cut off the heads of Nalan Li and his 2 brothers. Blood gushed out. The 3 headless bodies fell to the ground, and their heads rolled far away like blood gourds. In the face of this great change, everyone was stunned. Everyone looked at Jin Wanxiong in disbelief. Chapter 1009. Uncle Jin, don't kill me. Naranqinghe was so scared that her face turned pale. Tears flowed down her cheeks and she also pissed her pants. She ran away and wanted to beg for mercy. Jin Wanxiong took a step in the air and caught up. Once again he stabbed out with his saber, and with a pft, his heart was pierced. Fresh blood spurted out as it pierced through his chest. Naranqinghe was also dead. Uncle Jin, spare my life. Nalan Jun was so scared that he fell to the ground. He screamed miserably like a wild dog that had been hit by a stick. He rolled and crawled on the ground, shitting and urinating. Bang! Jin Wanxiong pushed his palm forward and Nalan Jun's body exploded. His flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Then he was like a mad tiger. In the blink of an eye, he killed several members of the Nalan family. Jin Wanxiong, what are you doing? Even a vicious tiger will not eat its cubs. Moreover, did I ask you to kill them? Jiang Tian seemed to have just come to his senses and shouted angrily. I killed them? Jin Wanxiong came to his senses. His face was full of astonishment. He looked at his blood-stained hands in a daze. He was in a daze and couldn't believe it. How could he dare to kill members of the Nalan family? The Nalan family was nothing to worry about. After all, they were Jiang Tian's wife, Zhao Xueqing's maiden family. Whether or not to kill, he had to listen to Jiang Tian's orders. However, he just couldn't control himself. It was as if his hands and feet didn't belong to him. Why is this happening? Jin Wanxiong, we are no longer part of the dragon protection lineage. We are not your slaves. Nalan Bo beat his chest and stamped his feet as he wailed. His heart was trembling. Originally, Jiang Tian was like a giant dragon flying in the sky. With this grandson-in-law, they should be glorious and prosperous for thousands of years. However, his 3 sons and a group of juniors were blind. They repeatedly confronted Jiang Tian, and in the end they almost destroyed the whole family. Master Kong. At this moment, Jin Wanxiong's eyes suddenly widened in shock as he came to a realization. His consciousness was being controlled by Jiang Tian. It was Jiang Tian who wanted to kill the Nalan family. Because with Jiang Tian's cultivation, it would be a piece of cake for him to stop or even kill him. Right, it must be because of Zhao Xueqing's bizarre background. The reason why he didn't kill the Nalan family was probably because he was waiting for this opportunity to appear. Because it was reasonable for him to kill people. Since he had killed a member of the Nalan family, he would also make a move against him. Moreover, he wouldn't be able to leave anything behind. This kid is so vicious. In order to help his wife keep an insignificant secret, he actually slaughtered 2 families in a row. How vicious. This was the true attitude of an emperor. The common people were like ants and human lives were like grass. What dragon protection clan? What reclusive royalty? As long as it could hurt him, no, even if it could only hurt his family members, even if it only affected his mood, he would still face a disaster. His mind turned at lightning speed and he instantly understood. At this moment he hated Jiang Tian to the core. However, his desire to survive was greater than anything else. In other words, the mentality of preserving his descendants was greater than anything else. He instantly decided to admit defeat. He knelt on the ground and said in a trembling voice, Master Kong, I was too emotional. I know I was wrong, but a big mistake has been made. This old man is willing to apologize with his life. I only beg Master Kong to let my family go. Of course you were wrong. Of course I will kill you, Zhang Tian said coldly. However, it's impossible to let your family go. Although you are ants, ants will still sting people. Although it's not fatal, it's very annoying. So, you want to destroy my family? Jin Wanxiong was trembling all over. His face was filled with despair and grief. He was also filled with regret. It was his idea to seize Sidoni's dojo. Now he had gone for wool and come home shorn. He was facing the disaster of destroying his family. Do you have any children under the age of 3 in your family? Zhang Tian suddenly asked. Yes, there are a few. Jin Wanxiong was ecstatic and his face was filled with gratitude. Good. I will pick a few with good aptitude and accept them as disciples. I will personally guide them and even bring them to the dimensional world. Zhang Tian said indifferently, as for you and the rest of your Jin family, go to hell. I have to give the Nalan family an explanation. Thank you, Master Kong, for your righteousness. Jin Wanxiong flipped his wrist and waved his saber. Prodigal. The dozen or so Jin family members were all killed. Not a single one was left alive. In an instant, corpses were everywhere. The thick smell of blood filled the air. Nalan Bo, I'm sorry. Don't hate me. Jin Wanxiong looked at Nalan Bo one last time. Then he slashed his saber across his neck. Blood stained the sky. Jin Wanxiong's tall body fell to the ground on his back. Ying Laozu, everyone, if you have time, do me a favor and kill the Jin family. Leave no one alive. Zhang Tian said indifferently. A 3-year-old child, Ying Laozu asked, but immediately felt that it was unnecessary. The whole place trembled. Everyone kept quiet out of fear. Their legs trembled and their hair stood on end. Especially Ying Su, Zhou Xian and the rest. They were so scared that they almost peed on the spot. Before this, Zhang Tian had repeatedly ordered them not to participate in the operation. However, they continued to fight for credit and profit. Zhang Tian did not seem to do anything substantial. But now they knew how cruel and heartless Zhang Tian was. He was cold to the extreme. He was inhumane. After today there would be no more Eisenjoro royal family in this world. Zhang Tian sighed softly. Then he looked at Nalan Bo sadly and said, Grandfather, my condolences. I will announce to the world that Nalan Li and the rest were sacrificed in the battle with the Holy Sea Brahmin. Also, there are a few good descendants in the Nalan family. Especially Nalan Chu. I will personally take care of her. Zhang Tian, thank you. Nalan Bo's face was full of tears. He looked down weakly to hide the doubt in his eyes. Also, Grandfather, there are some things that you should forget if you can. It is a blessing to be able to forget. Zhang Tian smiled faintly. Zhang Tian. Nalan Bo suddenly raised his head and looked at Zhang Tian in horror. In the depths of his eyes, there was a trace of pleading. Zhang Tian was still smiling. Suddenly his eyes turned cold. The Soul Devourer erupted and directly deleted all memories of Qing'er and Nalan Iran in his mind. At the same time, the Soul Devourer that Zhang Tian left in the Nalan family, which had been in a lurking state, also pounced into the old lady's mind. Nalan Bo's last look should be that he understood that Zhang Tian might have controlled Jin Wanxiong. Although Nalan Bo was a sentimental person, although he was very righteous, although Zhang Tian killing Nalan Li and the rest was entirely their own fault. But the hatred of killing one's son and almost exterminating one's family was not so easy to let go. The human heart was unpredictable. Of course, this time Zhang Tian was very careful. He would not damage the brains of Nalan Bo and his wife. They would not know Qing'er anymore, but at least they could live happily for another 10 years. From now on, no one in this world would know the secret of Qing'er's life. After doing all this, Zhang Tian looked at Huang Linger. In the depths of his eyes, there was a trace of pity. He smiled and said, Ling-er, you have made good progress in your seclusion this time. You have succeeded in building your foundation. How rare. Finally, I can no longer drag you down. Huang Linger seemed to have received a great reward. Her heart was sweet. She smiled shyly, but her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. This little hussy always likes to pretend to be weak and pitiful. Next to her, Tang Linglong was very jealous. She snorted lightly, but in her heart she was secretly ruthless. She must work hard to cultivate and build her foundation as soon as possible. She could not be defeated by Huang Linger, and she could not be looked down upon by Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian withdrew his gaze and looked to the west. He smiled as if the killing just now had nothing to do with him. He said lightly, "Everyone goodbye. However, you need to remember that no matter if you are a member of the royal family or an ordinary person, I hope you remember that you will always be Wuxia people. It is everyone's responsibility to guard their homeland. Yes. We'll definitely remember Grandmaster Zhang's lesson in our hearts. Yes, Master Kong. From now on I will take the reclusive royalty as my responsibility to guard Wuxia. I will follow Master Kong and everyone in Tianqing school. I will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire." Everyone stood respectfully. They bowed deeply, cupped their fists and said yes in unison. Yingying Laozu cupped his fists respectfully and asked, "Master Kong, where are you going?" "I'm going to the Vatican to destroy the Holy See. I don't have the patience to let the Tianqing school and the Long Formation train. Let's just kill them." Jiang Tian shook his head casually. Originally he had the intention of slaughtering the Holy See and the Brahmin. This time the battle line was stretched out and the battle was in a stalemate. It was just to train the Tianqing school and the Long Formation. Now they had gone through a certain amount of training and had achieved their goal. Jiang Tian wanted to quickly destroy the Holy See and the Brahmin, kill their way into the two-dimensional worlds, and snatch the spirit energy recovery seed. The Ying family is willing to follow Master Kong into the battlefield and help him. Yingying Laozu's blood was boiling as he hurriedly said earnestly, "Yes, it's our honor to be able to follow Master Kong. It's the blessing of 100 years. This group of little brats are stupid beyond compare. They're only helping us and nearly spoiling Grandmaster Zhang's great plan of 1,000 years. We must bravely kill the enemy and make up for our mistakes." The other leaders of the royal family also hurriedly expressed their loyalty and fought to be left behind. Now Jiang Tian was already the ruler of Jiang Tian and had the emperor's token. The fate of the reclusive royalty was in the hands of Jiang Tian. Ascending to heaven to cultivate was also something that could be done with a word from Jiang Tian. Moreover, Jiang Tian's strength was unparalleled. How could they not curry favor with him? "No need. I alone am enough." Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Suddenly his true ether burst out and turned into a bright golden light. It instantly broke through the sound barrier and flew toward the west like a golden rainbow. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared from everyone's sight. That was where the world's #1 great sage orthodoxy, the Holy City, the Vatican, was located. Chapter 10:10. A long time after Jiang Tian disappeared, the green pine peak was still dead silent. Everyone stood there in a daze as if they were dreaming. Master Kong is going to fight the Holy See and the Brahmin by himself. This is too shocking. No, the Holy See is full of powerhouses and cunning. We still have to follow. We can't let Master Kong take the risk alone. Everyone looked at each other and turned into streaks of light one after another, scrambling to follow after him. Basically, except for those who were seriously injured and couldn't move, the Tianqing school, the Huaxia Long Formation and the reclusive royalty all went. They walked for a while. "Pick up the corpses. Pick up the corpses and eat." The old dragon in the form of a big black dog ran down from the deer peak and rushed into the gourd cave. This guy was wretched to the extreme. Although his cultivation was strong, he was timid and didn't dare to fight the powerhouses of the Holy See head-on. He had been hiding in the command center. Now that the battle was over, he came out to clean up the battlefield and pick up the corpses to eat. However, when he arrived at the gourd cave, there wasn't even a drop of residue left. The Kulyan is so deceitful. Not even a speck of dust is left. I'm so hungry. The big black dog howled to the sky, then stepped into the air and flew toward the west. This time I have to follow Master's footsteps. Otherwise, I won't even be able to pick up a warm corpse. When Jiang Tian set out for the Vatican. Wuxia has been bewitched. Boom. In the Holy See of the Vatican, in the holy tomb overflowing with spiritual qi, holy light suddenly gushed out and formed a set of golden words. The words were sonorous and heavy, with a metallic texture and weight of more than 10,000 kilograms. They illuminated the entire Vatican City and shocked the whole world like thunder. This was an oracle. How could this be? Go and investigate what happened to the 6 great monasteries in the Crusade. Pope and St. Louis, who were originally confident of victory, suddenly looked as if they were facing a great enemy. They were shocked and panicked. This was an oracle, the consciousness of a true god's heroic spirit. The army of the East expedition, the 6 great monasteries and the crusade, were all elites of the Holy See. There were several saints in a monastery which was comparable to a large sect in Wuxia. The crusade was even more glorious. It had once swept across the entire European continent. Even many orthodoxies in Central Asia had been cruelly wiped out and suppressed by it. With these 2 forces invading Wuxia, it could be said that victory was assured. Even before this, a true god's avatar was summoned by Saint Laurent and walked out of the saint tomb to participate in the war in the East. The heroic spirit of a true god. He could even kill an earth-level deity with a wave of his hand. Not even nuclear weapons could hurt him. Pope, St. Louis and all the higher-ups of the Holy See had full confidence in this battle. In their opinion, Kong Teichu and the Tianqing school were too young and too weak. They had been completely isolated. How could they be a match for the crusade? But they didn't expect this to happen. Then a piece of shocking news broke out. Everyone was scared out of their wits. They felt cold and sweaty as if they had fallen into a nightmare. The crusade has been annihilated. The 6 great monasteries have been annihilated. The Brahmin army has been annihilated. Like a nuclear weapon, it shook the entire Vatican and shook the mountains. It swept across the 9 heavens and 10 lands, and the entire earth trembled. The 3 words, annihilated, were like heavy hammers. It fiercely smashed into their hearts, causing their hearts to almost explode. Their heads buzzed and they felt dizzy. This is impossible. A bishop in council said with a pale face and trembling voice. This is the age of Dharma ending. How can there be such a demon? Kong Teichu belongs to the Daoist sect after all. He doesn't believe in God, doesn't know how to accept faith and doesn't know sacred arts. How can he be so powerful? Must be a conspiracy. Kong Teichu can't have reached the level of fighting against the heroic spirits of a true god. Another bishop in a red robe said in disbelief. Maybe the Kunlun sect and the Hongmeng sect have done something. Especially the Kunlun sect and the ancestral court of the Taoist sect in Wuxia. They might have left some ancient arrays and used them to annihilate the crusade and the 6 great monasteries. An old 200-year-old cultivator in an old cultivator robe speculated. He was very knowledgeable and his eyes were like torches. Hongmeng was very mysterious. It was said that it was formed by the sky immortals of the Wuxia sect who were killed and punished by the immortal trap array. It was the most mysterious trump card in the cultivation world of the Wuxia sect. The magnificent Kunlun sect was born in the Preaching dynasty and was known as the ancestral court of the Taoist sect. It was the first divine mountain, the mountain of ancestors, the home of all gods. Its Taoist teachings had a long history and it was extremely powerful. It suppressed many sects and was even more mysterious. However, Kunlun and Hongmeng had been in hiding for hundreds of years. That was why the Holy See dared to be so presumptuous. Could it be that they had come out now? Not so. The situation is worse than we expected. However, the leader of the crusade, who was in the Holy See and hadn't gone to battle, immediately provided the battlefield information system with the images captured. Nowadays, the crusade was also a combination of sacred arts and modern technology. It was equipped with a battlefield command system, information system, and satellite connection. Therefore, the people behind the Holy See were still able to grasp the actual situation of the battlefield. The images were very clear. In the beginning, the 2 sides were fighting fiercely. Gradually, the crusade, the 6 great monasteries, and the Brahmin army gained the upper hand and were in a crushing situation. They chased the Tianqing school and the Huaxiaolong formation until they fled in panic like stray dogs. They even chased them into a gourd-shaped valley. It was like catching a turtle in a jar. Victory was in their grasp. However, at the last moment the Cultivation exploded. The sky splitter heavy cannon fired. Lightning flashed and a dazzling white light appeared. Then the image disappeared and it was dark. Fuck your mother. A bishop in council was so angry that his whole body trembled and he almost vomited blood. He cursed without caring about his image. Kong Teichu is too cunning. He actually used firearms. Despicable and shameless. Shameless. Too shameless. Too vicious. How dare you use a scheme? Many people were cursing loudly. This is not a firearm. This is a Dharma artifact. The leader of the Red Cross said with a trembling voice, "It looks like a miniature version of the Cultivation." Cultivation. A miniature version. When everyone heard this, their vision went dark and they almost fainted. They've developed a miniature version of the sunflower lotus. This thing was said to be superior to nuclear weapons. It could kill gods and Buddhas and exterminate all living things. It had once scared the leaders of major countries. The Pentagon and the Kremlin fought to buy it and started a Kuelian competition. They obediently gave money to Sidoni. The Holy See and the Brahmin seemed to be flaunting their power and determined to win, but in fact they were strong in appearance but weak in reality. Because Sidoni had the Kuelian. They did not dare to get close to Sidoni at all for fear that they would be wiped out in one shot. The reason why the Holy See and the Brahmin started the battle in Wuxia instead of Sidoni was because they were afraid of the Kuelian. They wanted to use Jiang Tian's hometown plot and patriotism to attract Wuxia and then be wiped out. After all, the Kuelian in Wuxia had just been tested. Moreover, the Lancang River was not a no-man's land. It was not easy to release it. But now you have developed a miniature Kuelian that can be pulled around by a truck. You can even install it on a helicopter. How are you going to let us live? How's the crusade now? How's the 6 great monasteries? Pope and St. Louis had a bad feeling. They were trembling and their voices were trembling. No one survived. Completely wiped out. We went to the battlefield to investigate. The leader of the crusade, with a trembling voice, showed the photos and videos taken from the battlefield. The battlefield was a mess. It was like the scene after a volcano erupted. The gourd cave was melted. Even the armor, helmets, and shields made of refined steel were all melted. Only some half-melted fragments could still be seen. It was obvious that this was a battlefield. All the experts of the Brahmins of the Holy See had disappeared from this world without leaving behind any corpses. The crusade, the 6 great monasteries, thousands of powerhouses. Those bishops in council and cardinals who once wanted to kill Jiang Tian felt extremely distressed when they saw this. Tears flowed down their faces. Wah 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 wah. I can't take it. The losses are too heavy. How can this be? God. What a god. Kong Teichu is too despicable. How can he use such a powerful artifact? Some people even vomited blood. No one knew whether it was because they were distressed or because they were angry. The 6 great monasteries were the Holy See's reliance. They were like the long formation to Wuxia. For example, if the Holy See were a country, then the crusade would be their army. They were the claws and teeth of tigers and wolves. They fought everywhere and plundered the world. They were the source of financial income. They were 10 times, 100 times more important than the Judgment Institute, which only targeted and suppressed the heretics. Now Jiang Tian's few shots were equivalent to breaking the teeth and breaking the claws of the tigers. Many bishops even regretted it. If they had known, they would have peacefully dominated the West. Why did they have to go to the Central Land to kill demons? They had lost soldiers and generals. They were in a sorry state. We have to conquer the East. Continue conquering the East. Pope and St. Louis were also shocked and astonished. But after a moment they regained their composure and issued an order. This is an unbearable loss for the Holy See. We must take revenge. Tear Kong Teichu into pieces. This time not only do we have to unite the Brahmin, but we also have to make use of the power of the reclusive royalty in Europe. Reclusive royalty? Are we going to encourage them too? Beside them, many cardinals, paladins, and monks were stunned. They could not believe it. Chapter 10-11. In the long history of Europe, religious power and imperial power had cooperated and fought against each other. In fact, there were more conflicts between them. The royal family needed the divine mandate of monarchy to prove the rationality of imperial power and to numb the people. This was a cooperation between both sides. However, religious power gradually grew, and most of the land was in the hands of the churches and monasteries. They also enjoyed the privilege of being exempted from taxes and corvée. Like a country within a country, this caused the royal family to be extremely dissatisfied. The royal family and nobles once launched the iconoclasm movement to attack the Pope and the Holy See. They killed the Pope and the Cardinal. The Pope was also dissatisfied with the offense and contempt of secular imperial power. He expelled the royal family and started the Holy War. The wars between religious power and imperial power broke out dozens of times in Europe during the Middle Ages. They were the most important part of European history. It could be said that the dualism between imperial power and religious power became one of the main contradictions in Europe. It was not until the Industrial Revolution and the rise of capitalism that the two were swept into the dust of history together. After the rise of capitalism, the Pope and Europe's reclusive royalty stayed out of each other's way. Now the Pope actually wanted to unite with Europe's reclusive royalty. This was completely crazy. He would do anything. When the news spread, the whole world of the strong and even the intelligence agencies of the major countries were shocked. Tianqing school actually turned the tables? The Crusade, the 6 great monasteries and the Brahmin Legion. What a glorious lineup. It's enough to go down in history, but Kong Techu wiped them out. Many people couldn't believe it. It was as if they were listening to a myth. Before this, everyone thought that Jiang Tian and the Tianqing school would lose without a doubt. After all, there was a big gap between their strength. But now they had wiped out the Crusade and the 6 great monasteries. It was really shocking. Could it be that Kong Techu and the Tianqing school will really win this time? Some strong people and forces were no longer so sure. They were shaken. If they win, then Tianqing school will be the #1 orthodoxy in the world. They can even suppress Kunlun. Many people were alarmed. They paid close attention and cast their gazes on the Holy See and the Brahmin. They were unable to calm down. The impact of this conflict was too far-reaching. It would rewrite history and shake the entire world. Not necessarily. The Holy See and the Brahmin will gather more forces and move out in full force to annihilate Kong Techu. The Holy See and the Brahmin are millennia-old orthodoxies. How can they be so easily bullied? Someone announced the news with certainty. They claimed that Kong Techu's actions would only lead to an even crueler counterattack. Originally, Sao Paulo and Cassiope Guru were only there as a form of deterrence and did not have to make a move. However, Jiang Tian had so many people and the conflict was irreconcilable. These 2 living fossils would definitely take action personally. Kong Techu's strength was still incomparable to the Holy See and the Brahmin. Moreover, Sao Paulo and Cassiope Guru's glorious achievements were listed. However, the development of the situation was more intense than everyone expected. One after another, earth-shattering news came one after another. Boom. In France, beside the Seine River, in a majestic palace filled with the aura of time, an old man wearing a bright crown and a brocade robe stood up. He looked like a lion overlooking the world and said coldly, "Bourbon royalty. For the safety of mankind, from this moment on, I declare war on Tianqing school." The Bourbon dynasty had ruled France since 1589 AD and lasted for 300 years. They had experienced many twists and turns. During the French Revolution they were overthrown. After the Battle of Waterloo they were restored for a period of time. However, they were overthrown again during the July Revolution. This royal family was powerful, had a deep foundation and had far-reaching influence. Even the Spanish royal family, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg, was a branch and descendant of the Bourbon dynasty. Many people thought that the Bourbon dynasty had been destroyed long ago. However, that was not the case. They had only hibernated. The ruler of the Bourbon dynasty, Henry VIII, was actually a holy king with a lifespan of 300 years. In the past, he was able to wrestle with the Holy See and set off a struggle between the royal and religious power. Kong Techu has repeatedly harmed the secular world in Europe and set off bloody storms. Now that the capitalist kingdoms are incompetent, we, the descendants of the royal family, naturally have to eliminate him and protect Europe. Later in Portugal, the royal family Castillo III also declared war on Tianqing school with murderous intent. The leader of the royal family was also a holy king, whose strength was equivalent to the earth god of the east. The empire on which the sun never sets has become so decadent and weak now. They were bullied by a Wuxia and a group of African Negroes. In the past they could only be our Negroes. Meanwhile, in an ancient manor in England, tens of thousands of rays of golden light suddenly shone, and majestic music was played. An old man wearing a golden crown and holding a scepter walked out slowly, looking at the people who were kowtowing to him. The Hanover family can't even protect Buckingham Palace. It's time for us, the Tudor royal family, to step in and show the world the true strength of the British Empire. He was already very old, with a head full of white hair. His back was hunched and he was trembling slightly. However, his blood chi was surging and his aura was soaring. His pair of deep blue eyes shot out a mysterious light. Edward VI, the last surviving emperor of the Tudor dynasty, had once ruled England for 100 years. He was actually a half-step holy venerable and was already 600 years old. Back then he was the Lord of the Sea and had once led strong ships and sharp cannons to conquer Europe. He had even carried out religious reforms and expelled the Holy See from the Vatican. He was someone who could talk to St. Paul. One after another, members of the hidden royal family appeared out of thin air. A total of 10 Saint Kings appeared in groups, stunning everyone. Many people didn't expect that in this age of chaos, especially after Zhang Tian wiped out the Covenant of Darkness. There were actually so many hidden royals in Europe. There were actually so many holy kings. However, when they thought about it carefully, they felt that it was not strange. In the long Middle Ages, the royal family, which represented the imperial power, the Holy See, which controlled the religious power, and the Covenant of Darkness, which represented the illegal power of the people, had been competing with each other, cooperating with each other, or killing each other, creating the magnificent and fluctuating European history. It wasn't until the rise of modern technology and capitalism that the three retreated from the stage of history and disappeared from everyone's sight. However, even the descendants of the weakest Covenant of Darkness could remain dormant until modern society, let alone the stronger Holy See and reclusive royalty. When it came to this dispute, although many of the major countries in the world were paying close attention, their attitudes were very ambiguous and they rarely spoke publicly. The European countries already knew how terrifying the Kuelian was, so they didn't dare to send troops to support the Holy See and reclusive royalty. Otherwise, they would destroy their own countries before Tianqing school was eliminated. The United States was basically uninvolved in this dispute. Now that the Blue Storm Bottle Universe Shield and even the Superbrain clan had been wiped out, they were not qualified to participate at all. President of the European Union Jung expressed in a private setting. He hoped that many powerhouses and forces would maintain their rationality and restraint. Even if they had to go to war, they must not invade the secular order. This was tantamount to appeasement and nurturing evil. He was happy to see it happen. In fact, many of the major countries in the world had very complicated emotions. Many politicians also had different standpoints and they quarreled fiercely in the meeting. Some heads of state and politicians hoped that both sides would go to war, fight to the death and suffer losses. Because whether it was the Tianqing school, the Holy See or the Brahmin, they were all existences that surpassed the secular regime. If they were allowed to develop, it would lead to the subversion of the existing social order. Some people thought that the Tianqing school, the Holy See and the Brahmin were the strongest of mankind. It was lamentable that they would kill each other. Especially in the case of the possible invasion of the worldlet, they needed to preserve their strength. In the end, the last holy sage of the Holy See, St. Paul, walked out of the Holy Tomb and issued an ultimatum in the Vatican. From today onwards, the Holy See and the European reclusive royalty would hunt down Kong Techu and the henchmen of the Tianqing school all over the world. At the same time, the Brahmin Kasapa guru also walked out of the ancient ashram and publicly announced that he would personally lead the Brahmin powerhouses to go to war against Zhang Tian and the Tianqing school to slay the evil. In this regard, the spokesperson of the Tianqing school immediately announced, "The Holy See and the Brahmin as well as any other forces, please immediately stop harassing and invading Wuxia and the Tianqing school." Kong Techu had led the Tianqing school all the way to the west to discuss global peace with the Holy See. If the other party wanted to go to war, there would be no need for peace negotiations. They would directly trample the European reclusive royalty and the two major orthodoxies. When the news came out, the world was shocked. Kong Techu had already gone deep into the enemy's territory alone and took the initiative to attack the Holy See? This was too crazy. Chapter 10-12. Many people thought that Zhang Tian had gone mad this time. How could he fight the Holy See alone? It was said that the true God of heaven had awakened there. No matter how strong he was just a mortal. How could he fight against it? While the outside world was in turmoil, Zhang Tian had already flown past Mount Komolangma and headed west, heading toward the Vatican where the Vatican was located. After leaving Wuxia, Zhang Tian found that the army of the Holy See was already rushing toward Wuxia. Fortunately, Zhang Tian took the initiative to attack. Otherwise, if these henchmen of the Holy See attacked Wuxia, who knew how much destruction and how many innocent people would suffer? Just half an hour after he rushed out, Zhang Tian encountered a group of missionaries from a monastery in Central Asia. They had crosses on their chests, but they were armed with firearms and cold weapons. They shouted the slogan of the Holy War and wanted to destroy the Eastern demon Kong Techu. They gave alms along the way and handed out leaflets to passers-by. They complained about the atrocities of the eastern demon Kong Teichu, and said that Zhang Tian should be executed by burning at the stake and sent to hell, never to be reincarnated. There were also a few beautiful nuns among them. They had blonde hair and blue eyes and wore white robes. They seemed very holy, but their bodies were covered with detonators and they used their robes to cover them. They claimed that they wanted to go to the Tianqing sect's dojo and die together with Jiang Taichu. Jiang Tian sneered and patted the sky-devouring magic gourd at his waist without saying a word. Blood gushed out and heads flew everywhere. Only a few of the leaders were killed. The others were scared out of their wits and fled in all directions. But as Jiang Tian moved forward, he found that there were more and more Holy See believers attacking. Some came from monasteries, some from Notre Dame, and some were just members of the fellowship. Many of them were powerless, but they were inspired by the Holy See to go to the east to slay evil dragons and become epic heroes. They would be rewarded by the Holy See and ascend to heaven after death. After all, the Holy See was the world's #1 orthodoxy. 1/6 of the world's population believed in them, and the number of their followers even exceeded the population of Wuxia. It was inevitable that some fanatics would be tempted to do such foolish things. They shouted slogans, insulted Jiang Tian, and even made Jiang Tian's family into puppets to humiliate and burn. In their mouths, Jiang Tian was a devil who killed people like Scything Flax, an evil dragon, and made up many unwarranted scandals and crimes. Even so, Jiang Tian still didn't go on a killing spree. Usually he only killed the leaders and scared them away. But then bad news came, causing Jiang Tian's eyes to crack. The Medicine King Group's distribution agencies all over the world were smashed and burned by the Holy See believers, and even suicide bombings. In the capital of Sidoni, there were several such suicide bombings in public places in major cities in the past hour. So far, at least 100 Chinese staff members had been killed or injured in the past hour. This was all instigated by the Pope and the clergy at all levels. The Holy See had decided to mobilize all its forces. It seems that you're not just talking. You really want to kill people. Jiang Tian didn't want to argue with them at first, but when he heard this news he was finally enraged and decided to go on a killing spree. Jiang Tian flew over a city in Central Asia like a meteor and swept his gaze over the central square of the city. Slay the devil of the east, burn Wuxia, the evil dragon Kong Teichu, and send the false gods to hell. For the Holy See I will face death with equanimity. A holy virgin of the Vatican, about 14 or 15 years old, stood on the high platform with tears in her eyes. She was tall and had snow-white skin. She was very beautiful and holy. She held the cannon in her hand and shouted loudly. A holy virgin was the highest-ranking nun in a parish. Greya was the most outstanding among the holy virgins. She believed in the Messiah and had once raised $400 million in the United States on her own. Many high-tech companies in the United States liked to donate to her. But she gave all of it to the poor. Her personal assets were only a pair of sandals, 3 sets of clothes, and a picture of the Messiah's suffering. But since the rise of Tianqing School, all the high-tech companies in the United States believed in the Tianqing School and stopped donating money. So Greya hated Jiang Tian to the bone because she believed that there was only one true God in the world. And Jiang Tian was called the true God of Taichu by the people of Sidoni. This was a provocation. Around her, about 3,000 believers were kneeling and listening. The large square was densely packed. Their eyes were pious and fanatical as they waved their arms and shouted with her. There were also pastors, deacons, and godfathers distributing brochures and Holy Communion. Their eyes were sad and solemn. To Jiang Tian's surprise, Qin Zongheng was also among them. This rich young master had already transformed into the head of a monastery of the Holy See. He was speaking from his own experience, making up stories and accusing Jiang Tian. Kong Teichu is ruthless and ruthless. He exterminated families and armies at the slightest provocation. He's not human at all. He's worse than an animal. He's a demon, a beast. He waved his arms and shouted with righteous indignation. According to statistics, Kong Teichu has killed more than 10,000 people in 5 years. He hated Jiang Tian, Tianqing School, and even Wuxia to the core. It was because of Jiang Tian that the Qin family was destroyed. He also lost everything. His reputation, power, status, a good life, and was once imprisoned. Kong Teichu killed the messenger of peace in the dimensional world. This will bring disaster to the entire world. Kong Teichu and Tianqing School are the common enemies of all mankind. They have committed crimes against humanity and should be hanged. Kill the demon Kong Ti. As his voice fell. Below the stage, the emotions of countless believers were stirred. They were so agitated that their faces were flushed. Their eyes were burning with anger as they shouted loudly. Kong Ti, come and kill me. Jiang Tian smiled coldly and landed on the stage. Jiang Kong Tegu. Qin Zongheng was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. He sat down on the ground. He never thought that Jiang Tian would bump into him. Are you that demon? Demon. Fake god. You blaspheme the true god of the Holy See. Why don't you die? The 14 or 15-year-old blonde saintess, Greya, pounced on Jiang Tian with bared fangs and brandished claws. She was very cute. She had beautiful blue eyes, a straight nose, a slender waist, a high chest and jade-like skin. She was a beauty in the making. Her cute pink fists fell on Jiang Tian's chest like raindrops. She was like a little girlfriend acting coquettishly. Smack. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold. He didn't hold back and pressed his palm on her bud-like chest. In an instant, Greya's body exploded into a rain of sparkling flesh that rained down from the sky. Her head that didn't explode rolled far away. Her pair of beautiful eyes were still filled with fear and unwillingness. It was as if she couldn't believe that she had died so suddenly. So cruel. So scary. Kong Teichu is a demon. He really is a demon. Many priests, deacons and missionaries were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it. You're not human at all. How could you do this to an innocent, cute, beautiful and innocent little girl? Qin Zongheng was so scared that he wet his pants. Jiang Tian turned his head slightly and looked at him from the corner of his eyes. He sneered. Don't you know what the Qing Xian Paozi and the star dimension want to do in this world? I know. Qin Zongheng trembled. His heart almost exploded. Ever since he met Jiang Tian in Jinling and was tortured by Jiang Tian had been a shadow in his heart. Just thinking about it made him wet his pants. What are you here for? Jiang Tian asked. To occupy Earth and enslave all mankind. You're saving this world and protecting mankind. Qin Zongheng's answer shocked and confused everyone. Then how dare you distort the truth and slander me? Jiang Tian's eyes turned cold as he questioned coldly. You think I can't find you, or you think the Holy See can stop me and protect you? Master Kong, give me another chance. Don't kill me, I know I'm wrong. Qin Zongheng was so scared that tears and snot flowed down his face. He trembled like a quail in the cold wind. Suddenly he knelt down in front of Jiang Tian and kowtowed frantically. He still dared to secretly fan the flames behind Jiang Tian's back. But facing Jiang Tian's unparalleled pressure, he couldn't even withstand a second. I'm too kind. I've already given you bastards too many chances. Jiang Tian's lips curved into a cruel smile. He flicked his finger. A loud bang was heard. Qin Zongheng's body exploded on the spot, and his sparkling flesh and blood scattered like a rain of flesh. Everyone was trembling in fear. Tell Pope that I, Kong Teichu, will kill him immediately. Jiang Tian withdrew his finger. His face was calm. His eyes swept across the clergy and believers coldly and emotionlessly. Even if I'm a demon, Pope should be the one to kill me. He instigated you ordinary people to do it. Cowardly behavior is despicable. You've been deceived. This time I'll give you a chance. I'll give you 5 seconds to retreat quickly. Tell all the believers and clergy of the Holy See that I, Kong Teichu, am going to start a massacre. Jiang Tian's words were like a cold wind blowing from a 10,000-year-old glacier. The surrounding temperature plummeted by more than 10 degrees. Everyone felt cold all over and their hair stood on end. If you don't want to die, stay at home obediently. Don't come out, don't go to any Holy See place, and I won't kill you. If I see anyone, I'll kill them without mercy. Jiang Tian's words were like a sudden clap of thunder. It shook everyone's eardrums and caused the entire square to tremble. The square, with a radius of a few kilometers, was dead silent. The thousands of people on the square were all trembling. Their eyes were averted in fear and they didn't dare to make a sound. Chapter 10:13. Bastard. A missionary in the crowd muttered with a venomous look in his eyes. Bang. Jiang Tian flicked his finger and the man's head exploded. The headless body fell to the ground. Fake god, go to hell. A believer trembled either out of anger or fear. He picked up a carrot and threw it at Zhang Tian. Whoosh! Zhang Tian's purple lightning eyes burst out and turned the man into ashes. Some people began to retreat and leave the square. But the power of faith was terrifying. Less than 1/10 of them left. There were still hundreds of people standing there, silent but staring at Zhang Tian with hatred. 5 seconds are up. Zhang Tian suddenly spoke. He jumped into the air and slammed his palm down. The Gingjin giant palm, more than 3 kilometers long, fell from the sky and covered the entire square, smashing at least 500 people into meat paste. Zhang Tian continued west and didn't look at them again. Zhang Tian's words had reached the Holy See through the believers and clergy who had left the square. Tianqing School also announced that those who resisted were fanatics. Zhang Tian didn't hold back. Hehe, you want to go to heaven? If he died so loyally, he would definitely do so. I'll send you there. Plang. Zhang Tian stepped on the ground and slammed his palm down. A church was directly destroyed and hundreds of clergymen of the Holy See were killed. It was another Holy See expeditionary force. No one knew where they came from. They drove off-road vehicles with the flag of the Holy See. There were thousands of them and they were equipped with firearms and even heavy artillery. Plang. Just like before, they were smashed to pieces. They didn't even see Zhang Tian's figure before they disappeared from the world. Zhang Tian killed hundreds of people with every step he took. Every step was stained with blood as he pushed toward the Holy See. At this time, Zhang Tian's personal expedition to the west had already shocked the entire world. The ones who had attacked Zhang Tian at the beginning were indeed small and useless organizations. Many of them did not even know Saint Arts, nor did they have any special abilities. As long as the Holy See was bewitched, they would buy guns and cannons, shout slogans and recklessly attack. But as Zhang Tian slammed his palms down, many organizations felt that something was amiss. Zhang Tian was like a bulldozer, crushing everything in its path. Every time he would only attack once, but every time the entire army would be wiped out, not even a chicken or a dog would be spared. In just a few hours, Zhang Tian had pushed through 4 countries and 2,000 square kilometers of land. He had attacked more than 10 times in total, with at least a few hundred people and at most 10,000 people. In just a few hours, more than 50,000 people had died in the hands of Zhang Tian. These clergy and believers, no matter how stupid they were, knew that Zhang Tian was not someone they could afford to provoke. At this time, no matter how much the Holy See instigated, there were no major forces to stop Zhang Tian or march toward Wuxia. There was no other way. The Holy See began to mobilize the forces of the bounty hunters, as well as some nobles and ancient families. In a valley near the Black Sea in Turkmenistan. Boss, are you kidding me? $100 million to stop Kong Techu. A bounty hunter with an angel tattoo on his face, holding a medieval shield in his hand and wearing golden armor, was lying in the bunker, shivering. Next to him there were dozens of soldiers, all wearing old armor or robes covered with Dao patterns with crosses hanging from their necks. They looked nervous and uneasy. Their weapons, such as spears, shields and broadswords, were all made of strange metals and were made by alchemists. They were covered with mysterious patterns and were comparable to the Dharma treasures of the Daoist sect in Wuxia. They could withstand artillery fire and were not afraid of the bombardment of firearms. The hunters of the gospel bounty. They were famous in Europe and could be ranked in the top 3, even surpassing the Pulsatilla and comparable to Van Helsing. They were powerful Dharma powers and their saint spells were powerful. Several of them were at the immortal state level. Many European families admired them because they had always been successful in eliminating monsters and demons. These people used to think highly of themselves and were arrogant. But at this time, they were trembling in fear as if they were facing a formidable enemy. They couldn't wait to turn around and run away. Besides, they were frightened by Zhang Tian alone. It couldn't be helped, Zhang Tian's reputation was too great. He had defeated the overlords in Japan, destroyed the Gathering of Darkness, suppressed the European Union and the Pentagon. He had destroyed families, clans, sects, armies and countries. He could destroy everything. Yesterday he had also killed the overlords of the Crusade, the 6 great monasteries and the Brahmin. It was terrifying. Kong Techu used a Dharma artifact called the Kualian to defeat the Crusade and the 6 great monasteries. But according to the intelligence, he didn't bring that Dharma artifact with him. So, our chances of winning are still very high. The leader of the Hunters of the Gospel Bounty looked very calm with a cross hanging on his neck. But in fact he also wanted to curse. "Fuck you, St. Louis. You're the one who's hiding in the back, drinking and eating and using us as cannon fodder." The Hunters of the Bounty had to be trained and certified by the Holy See. Many of their jobs were even distributed by them. The Holy See had spoken. If they didn't come, it would be equivalent to going against the Holy See. St. Louis would be furious. They would have no food to eat in the future. Even after killing Kong Techu, the Holy See would settle the score. Just wait to be killed. This kind of thing had happened many times in history. The Inquisition of the Holy See was not just for show. They would burn and hang people at the stake for no reason. Chances of winning, my ass. There's no chance of winning at all. Don't you know how powerful Kong Techu is? All the members of the Hunters of the Gospel Bounty wanted to fuck the leader's mother. But I heard that this time, there's a powerhouse from an ancient family coming to help. We're just here to help. The leader showed some hope and prayed in his heart. You must come. If the powerhouse from this ancient family doesn't come, we're really just cannon fodder. What family? Someone asked. The famous Blue Blood family. The leader said with a face full of reverence. What? They're coming too? Then at least we have a 60 to 70% chance of winning. Everyone was overjoyed. This was a noble family in Spain, second only to the reclusive royalty. Their blood was blue and they were famous in history. They were mighty and domineering and their influence was vast and far-reaching. As a result, Westerners used the word blue to refer to those noble and intelligent elites. At this moment, holy light flickered in the sky. White light filled the air and a majestic white horse came through the sky. It was a wingless Pegasus, but it could fly. It was indescribably miraculous. This horse had the bloodline of the unicorn. Its entire body was snow-white, smooth and without a single strand of hair. Pegasus. This is a Pegasus. Can fly. Yes, it can fly. How magical. Legend has it that only the reclusive royalty and true nobles can ride it. It can travel thousands of miles in a day without tiring. Everyone's faces were full of admiration and yearning. Such a magical species was very rare and only existed in legends. Today they finally saw it. On the Pegasus there was a young girl wearing silver armor. Her breasts were tall, her waist was slender and her figure was slender. Her golden hair was draped over her shoulders, and her eyes were as blue as the sea. Her nose was tall and her lips were red. Her snow-white skin was almost transparent, and even the blue blood vessels beneath could be seen. So beautiful. She's the little princess of the Blue Blood family, Arale. Everyone was dumbfounded. Their hearts felt like they were being scratched by a cat, itching and restless. They only felt that she was the best work of art in the hands of God, perfect and flawless. They only felt that if they were to be looked at by her, their life would not be in vain. How far is Kong Techu? Arale held a silver spear and looked valiant. Her eyes were cold like a high and mighty princess looking down at everyone. Reporting to the Honorable Princess Arale, the intelligence personnel said that Kong Techu is 300 kilometers away from our defense line. The leader pressed his right hand to his chest and bowed respectfully. Humph. He still hasn't come after so long. Could it be that he doesn't dare to come because he heard that I, Arale, am going to fight him? Arale rode her horse and landed on a mountain peak. She looked to the east and a trace of disdain flashed across her blue eyes. She was very proud. Among the younger generation of the many hidden families in Europe, she who was already half a step away from becoming a saint, was ranked in the top 20. Arale had already heard too many legends about Kong Techu. She had long wanted to fight with Jiang Tian. Humph, if I, Arale, was born, I would be able to suppress Kong Techu and call him my master. However, the hidden families in Europe adhered to the principle of seclusion, and the head of the family did not allow her to come out. But this time, the Holy See had called for all the experts in Europe to kill the demon of the East. The family was also mobilized. They were so busy that their feet did not touch the ground, and they did not have time to look after her. She sneaked out and prepared to kill Jiang Tian, the evil dragon, and become an epic hero. Friends from afar, sorry to disturb you. May I ask if you have seen my master? Just as everyone was shocked by Arale's arrival and the mystical flying horse. In the sky, a huge black dog suddenly ran over happily. It stuck out its scarlet tongue and panted as it asked in human language. Moreover, it spoke in a standard London accent like a sonnet, very pure and elegant. Everyone was stunned. Chapter 10:14. A dog can also fly? Can even talk? Everyone was deeply shocked. Even Aralay's eyes shone with disbelief. Her Pegasus had the bloodline of the unicorn, but it couldn't talk either. This big black dog was simply too amazing. Who's your master? Aralay raised her eyebrows and asked arrogantly. Kong Teju here to kill. He's very handsome, but he's fierce. Have you seen him? The big black dog asked gloomily. Originally he came to chase after Zhang Tian. After all, he could follow Zhang Tian and pick up the corpses here. However, Zhang Tian's speed was faster than a plane, so he couldn't find him at all. At this moment he was tired and hungry, feeling extremely uncomfortable. So you're Kong Techu's lackey. Aralay hugged the silver spear to her chest and smiled proudly. Kong Techu will definitely die if he meets me. You can talk very amazing. I won't kill you. You can be my pet. Beast? Lackey? Huh. You don't know what's good for you. The big black dog sneered. Suddenly he stretched out his right paw and grabbed the silver spear in his hand. Give me back my silver spear. Aralay turned pale with fright. This was a treasure passed down from her ancestors. It was very powerful and priceless. Moreover, she noticed that when the big black dog stretched out his paw, it actually turned into a dragon's claw. It was very powerful. She urged her Pegasus to come over in the air. She pulled out the long sword at her waist and swept it towards the big black dog. Instantly, sword chi gushed out, surrounded by lightning, and exploded, causing the void to tremble violently. She was already half a step into the immortal state at such a young age. If she appeared in the world, she would definitely shock the world. Unfortunately, the one she met was the old dragon. The old dragon was originally a purple gold true dragon. Its bloodline was noble, mystical, and powerful. It followed Jiang Tian in Star World and ate many powerful cultivators. Its cultivation was actually around the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. It was just that this fellow was weak and timid. He only followed behind Jiang Tian to pick up scraps and did not erupt easily. Now that he had wandered around Star World and returned to Earth, wouldn't he still see everyone as ants and kill and eat people without holding back? You don't know why I want this silver spear, do you? Actually, I'm missing an iron skewer to barbecue meat. The old dragon laughed maniacally. His demonic chi erupted and his dragon claws materialized. He crushed the altar master's sword and sent Aralay flying. The Pegasus couldn't help but tremble in fear when it saw its ghastly scales and ferocious bloody mouth. Its mane stood on end as it raised its hooves and neighed miserably before turning around to flee. Why are you running? You look delicious. The old dragon held a silver spear in one of its dragon claws and pierced through the Pegasus like a bolt of lightning. Seeing this, Aralay couldn't help but be horrified. She recalled the instructions of the family's elders. Kong Techu is a peerless master who stands at the peak of this blue planet. There are only a handful of people in this world who can rival him. I'm afraid only a saint can resist and suppress him. You must not provoke him. You're still too weak. Before this, she didn't believe it at all. Now she realized that she couldn't even defeat Kong Techu's pet dog. How could she be a match for Kong Techu? What are you all standing there for? Get me some wood. Make a fire. The big black dog showed off his prowess and landed on the ground. He roared loudly at the stunned bounty hunters. They were still hesitating when the big black dog's paw slapped down. Instantly, the captain was slapped into a bloody mess and fell to the ground dead. Scary. Oh my god, Kong Techu is really a peerless demon. Even a dog is so scary. The others were trembling in fear and didn't have the slightest intention to resist. They helped him find dry wood and made a bonfire. I'm particular about dogs, I'm particular about dragons. I don't eat them raw. I want to eat roasted meat medium well. The big black dog cut the Pegasus into 8 pieces, washed them clean and skewered them with his silver spear. Then he took out cumin, salt, pepper, oil, honey, brushes and other things from the hunter's supplies. He picked up the Pegasus meat and roasted it over the bonfire. Soon the Pegasus meat was roasted to a golden color. Hot oil sizzled out and a spicy and alluring aroma assailed the nostrils. Anyone who smelled it couldn't help but salivate. Delicious. As expected of the bloodline of a mutated beast. It's extraordinary. Flying here and there to train every day, the meat is so chewy. The big black dog sat there cross-legged like a human, chewing on the piping hot Pegasus meat with his big mouth. He couldn't help but comment. "Demon, you're a demon." Arale cried with grievance. She gritted her teeth and danced around, shouting hysterically. This Pegasus was her beloved pet, but now it had become dog food for a vicious dog. Who said that dogs were the most loyal friends of humans? It was obviously extremely vicious. "Demon, you're already being merciful by not killing you." The big black dog chuckled, unmoved, and ate the Pegasus meat in big mouthfuls. "Inhumane." Arale rebuked angrily. "Yes, I'm not human in the first place. Why should I be humane?" The big black dog laughed loudly. "Do you know why I didn't kill you? Seeing that you're not bad-looking and my master likes to take in maidservants, I'll give you a chance to let my master have a taste of foreign meat. I'm the little princess of the blue blood family. How can I be Kong Teichu's maidservant? Dream on." Arale gnashed her teeth in hatred. During this period she tried to escape a few times, but she was slapped by the old dragon. Moreover, the old dragon threatened that if she dared to run again he would disfigure her and carve a few tortoises on her face. Girls all loved to be beautiful. Disfiguring one's face was scarier than death. Arale finally became obedient and squatted there calmly. However, she was still grinding her teeth, itching to tear the old dragon into pieces. "Old dragon, you're running quite fast. You're actually in front of me. You're eating quite well." Suddenly, a mocking laugh sounded. Everyone looked up. They saw a handsome young man in white with black hair and black eyes. His clothes were fluttering in the wind like an immortal. He walked through the air and landed on the ground unhurriedly. "Wow, so handsome. He's so elegant and handsome, how can he be a demon? The Holy See must have made a mistake." Seeing Zhang Tian, Arale's beautiful eyes flashed, her beautiful face flushed, and even her breathing became rapid. Zhang Tian was too handsome, like a god descending from the heavens. There was no flaw in him, and he was much more handsome than those European nobles and royalty. Her beautiful eyes flashed and her heart was stirred. She thought to herself that being Zhang Tian's maidservant seemed to be a good choice. "Master, I didn't kill anyone along the way. I only chased after you, so of course I'm fast." The large black dog ran over happily and pounced into Zhang Tian's arms, licking Zhang Tian's face with his tongue. "Fuck, are you addicted to pretending to be a dog? Where did this bad habit come from?" Zhang Tian slapped him on the head and sent him flying. He wiped the saliva off his face and was extremely disgusted. The large black dog pointed at Arale and said with a sly smile, "Master, this girl is not bad-looking, right? She wanted to kill you, but I subdued her. Although you have many maidservants, you don't have any foreign girls. I'll help you find one." "Kong Teichu, how can you let your dog do this? You have to compensate me for my flying horse." She was like a spoiled boyfriend, and the bounty hunters around them were all stunned. This was loosening the reins only to grasp them better, and it was close to flirting. Arale was very confident that Kong Teichu would definitely be seduced by her. In the past, as long as she acted like this, even the princes of the European royal families would not be able to resist her temptation and would beg to please her. "Oh, compensate you for your flying horse? What kind of trash are you?" Zhang Tian did not say anything. He pointed his finger and directly pierced through Arale's chest. Puff! Blood burst out and the armor shattered. A bloody hole appeared on Arale's full chest and she fell to the ground. "You actually killed me." Arale kept vomiting blood from the corner of her mouth. Her beautiful eyes were filled with shock, as if she could not believe that Zhang Tian actually attacked her. How cruel. At this moment she finally understood that the demon of the East was indeed ruthless to the extreme. The battlefield was indeed a battlefield. It was not a treat, nor was it a romance. He simply killed without batting an eyelid. Unfortunately, she understood it too late. Bang! Zhang Tian's flying sword swept across, and the dozens of bounty hunters around him all exploded with blood spurting out. Zhang Tian did not take a second look at these dead people. He continued to shoot into the distance. The Holy See of the Vatican was getting closer and closer. Next, Zhang Tian met more than 10 demon hunters, the Hunters of the Bounty, and other organizations affiliated with the Holy See. But for Zhang Tian they were no match at all. With a slap, hundreds of people were directly smashed into powder and meat paste, leaving no one alive. At this time, Situ Shao Yi Tianren, the left and right protectors, Zhao Yuankuan, and many members of the reclusive royalty, led by Yingying Laozu, had also arrived. More often than not, Jiang Tian did not even have to do anything. The 5 of them were enough to slaughter everything. At this time, various organizations such as the Demon Hunters and the Hunters of the Holy See could no longer command them. Even if the Holy See offered a reward of hundreds of millions of yuan, even if they were threatened with their lives, no organization dared to confront Jiang Tian. The news of Wuxia being possessed by a demon had spread all over the world. Jiang Tian went west without any concealment, causing a huge commotion. The whole world was shocked and restless. Jiang Tianmo traveled to the west, sweeping everything before him. In a single night he killed until the cities trembled, the heavens fell, the earth split, and the continent was dyed in blood. He killed until all sides trembled in fear. He killed until the night broke, until the smell of blood rushed into the sky. He killed until dawn broke in the east. When Jiang Tian arrived in Rome, it was already the morning of the next day. The sun was rising and the sun was shining brightly. The majestic city of Rome was in sight. At this time, Jiang Tian and the others silently landed on the roof of a building in the south of Rome. An earth-shattering battle was about to break out. Chapter 10:15. The southern part of the city where Jiang Tian was located was the new city. The wide asphalt roads crisscrossed with rows upon rows of high-rise buildings, echoing the ancient city in the north, presenting a unique landscape of classical and modern. The northern part of Rome was like a large historical museum. The Imperial Senate, the Arc de Triomphe, the Pillars of Glory, the Pantheon, and the Colosseum were arranged in a picturesque disorder, waiting for visitors to visit, comment, and pay homage. True God, come down. The demon of the East is slaughtering your devout believers and people. Where are the ancient holy knights? They have been guarding the Holy See since the Dark Age. Please wake up and send the blasphemer to hell. At this time, hundreds of thousands of believers of the Holy See had gathered in the northern part of Rome. They knelt in the square outside the church and prayed devoutly. The demon deserves to die. He should be hanged. How can he blaspheme the glory of the Holy See? He should be sent to hell. There were also clergy and believers who raised their arms and shouted, accusing Jiang Tian of his crimes with righteous indignation. In addition, thousands of people from the intelligence agencies of the Pentagon, MI6, and other countries, as well as experts from all walks of life, gathered in various highlands of Rome. So many people. No wonder this is the most important battle in the past 2,000 years. No country or organization dares to ignore it. Red Sparrow clicked her tongue. Her face was shocked and her eyes were solemn. In the new city of Rome, there were densely packed figures on the rooftops of various buildings. There was no lack of top military leaders among them. They were fully focused and their eyes were nervous and expectant. They even set up recording equipment, intending to record the battle situation so that they could make a scientific assessment of the combat power of all parties after the battle. This battle was too important. It was the fiercest collision between the most powerful forces on this planet. The result of this battle would have an extremely profound and immeasurable impact on the entire world. Historians of the future and anthropologists said in their speeches to the government that the impact of this battle was no less than the Industrial Revolution and the Internet Revolution. Therefore they must pay close attention to it. It's indeed the world's first orthodoxy. Its foundation is really extraordinary. Jiang Tian stood on top of the building in the southern part of the city and looked at the northwest of Rome with a faint smile. That was the Vatican. However, no one dared to underestimate it. This was because it controlled the faith of 1/6 of the world's population. It was the world's oldest and strongest orthodoxy. Although the Brahmin sect and the Kunlun sect had a longer history than it, they did not have as many followers as it did, nor did they have as much wealth as it did. St. Peter's Basilica, located in the center of the Vatican, was the Holy Land of the Holy See, the place where the Pope resided. It was also the largest church in the world. With an area of 23,000 square meters, it could accommodate 60,000 people. The Romanesque and Baroque buildings were decorated with complicated decorations. Tall and majestic towers, statues of gods and statues of angels stood in great numbers. They were lifelike and had an awe-inspiring and inviolable aura. Master, let's just attack the city. Hu Qingtian's fighting spirit was surging. His heart was beating fast and his eyes were shooting out flames of war. The others were also rubbing their hands, eager to give it a try. They looked at Jiang Tian with excitement and anticipation, waiting for his orders. The young powerhouses like Huang Linger, Tang Linglong and Zhu Ke could not keep calm. They were so excited that their hands were trembling slightly. If they won this battle, Tianqing School would be the world's first orthodoxy. A peerless sect. Endless glory and immortality. It was no exaggeration to say that this battle, regardless of the outcome, would be recorded in the annals of history and praised for thousands of years. At this moment, everyone was following Zhang Tian to witness history, rewrite history and create history. Nonsense, we're not here to treat them to a meal. We're here to beat them up. Zhang Tian put his hands behind his back. His clothes fluttered in the wind like an immortal. His face was calm and he chuckled. Then he exhaled and spoke in a cold voice, his voice booming like spring thunder. Holy See, Brahmin, reclusive royalty, didn't you say that you want to kill me, Kong Techu? Come out and fight. Every word Zhang Tian said was like a giant cannon in the sky. Like rolling thunder, there was a substantial sound wave pushing out. Suddenly, the entire city of Rome trembled violently as if there was a big earthquake. Some old buildings even cracked. Countless people were dizzy and fell to the ground with blood spurting out of their mouths. Their bodies twitched and they screamed. Some people's heads exploded and died. Zhang Tian's words killed thousands of people. Kong Techu. He's here. Everyone turned their heads to look at the young man in white with black hair and black eyes. They screamed as if they had seen a ghost. Zhang Tian suppressed the big countries and dominated the world. Perhaps many ordinary people did not know him. However, there was no one in the dark world who didn't know about it. It was like thunder in their ears. Greetings to the Lord of Sidoni, the suzerain of Tianqing School, His Excellency Kong Techu. Many high-ranking military officials and the strong men of the dark world were so shocked that they were trembling. They did not care if Zhang Tian was looking at them. They all bowed deeply to Zhang Tian or saluted him seriously to show their highest respect. But when the sound wave bombarded the Vatican, in St. Peter's Cathedral, numerous statues of the true gods, messiahs, and angels rose up one after another with dazzling holy light, turning into a barrier that reached the heavens and the earth, firmly blocking Zhang Tian's sound wave attack. What? Brahmin and reclusive royalty have also gathered here? They are so fast. After hearing Zhang Tian's words, Yi Tianren and many other disciples were stunned. They could not believe it. The enemy's reaction was too fast. Kong Techu, you are so arrogant. You dare to come to Europe and wreak havoc. Do you think there is no one in Europe? Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Strong figures rose into the sky and pierced through the void like rainbows piercing the sun. They landed on the Colosseum of the ancient city of Rome. The royal aura filled the air and suppressed the 9 heavens and 10 earths. An old man wearing a golden crown and a gilded robe with a war spear in his hand climbed to the top of the Colosseum on a flying horse and faced Zhang Tian directly. This flying horse was snow-white and extremely majestic. Its wide wings were more than 10 meters long, as if it was not a creature of the human world. On the flying horse, the old man's curly blonde hair draped over his shoulders. His eyes were like lightning and sharp as a knife, full of supreme majesty. Boom. The pressure of a veteran holy king was unreservedly released. It was intimidating and made everyone's heart contract suddenly. Behind him, more than 10 members of the royal family riding flying horses spurred their horses into the air and followed closely. Every one of them had an extraordinary background and noble bloodline. The men were handsome and the women were beautiful and charming. Their strength was extraordinary. Each of them had reached the level of saints and half-step holy kings. They were the last trump card of the European royal family. Their combat strength surpassed that of Zeus and Hera of the Pantheon. Behind them, more than 1,000 soldiers of the royal family rose into the air. They lined up neatly and sternly, occupying the Colosseum. They wore ancient armor made by famous alchemists in the Middle Ages. Magical Tao patterns were engraved on the armor and emitted a dazzling light. The powerful magical energy waves were so strong that it was almost tangible. The patriarch of the Bourbon royalty, Henry VIII. A real holy king who once ruled the French Empire for hundreds of years. His combat strength is comparable to an earth god. Yi Zhantian's pupils contracted slightly. His face was solemn as he revealed the origin of this person. Seeing this, countless tourists and believers were so shocked that their faces turned pale. They were moved and almost suffocated. According to legend, in the Middle Ages, Henry VIII once killed tens of thousands of people in a great war. Although there were very few firearms at that time, the people he killed were not ordinary people. They included alchemists, missionaries, superpowered people, and even the Blood Clan. The whole of Europe trembled in fear. Back then, even the supreme Blood Lord Cain and the heroes of the Gathering of Darkness were terrified when they met him. They had to retreat to show their respect. Seeing this, Situ Zhao's face was also very solemn. A holy king? Too weak. There are no powerful overlords in Europe. They are just ants that I can crush later on. Jiang Tian chuckled. His face was full of mockery. A holy king. To put it bluntly, his cultivation was equivalent to the second level of the Foundation establishment. Jiang Tian's sword could kill thousands of people. You are so arrogant. How do you know the strength of the reclusive royalty in the West? How do you know the means of the Bourbon royalty? Henry VIII's royal aura surged. He stared at Jiang Tian and said mockingly, Kong Teichu, what if I join you? Boom. Along with a dignified shout. Another group of people tore the sky apart and rose into the sky. They were like the scorching sun, emitting a blazing light. They flew across the sky and landed on top of the Imperial Senate. Edward Vi. A half-step sacred master. Chapter 1016. Back then he had followed the Eight-Nation Alliance to invade China and defeated Fan Qilong, the Grand Master of the Qing dynasty. Situ Zhao's eyes flickered. His expression turned serious as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Fan Qilong, the Grand Master of the Qing dynasty, was on par with Situ Zhao, or even slightly stronger. In that case, Edward Vi's cultivation was even higher than Situ Zhao's before Jiang Tian became his disciple. Haha, Kong Teichu, you are really arrogant. Edward VI bent over and coughed, but his eyes were cold and murderous. He laughed sinisterly and said disdainfully, Wuxia's Dharma spells are nothing to me. We don't even fear the ancestral court of the Dao sect, the Kunlun sect, much less a mere brat like you. Although he was very old, he was like an experienced old wolf. His killing intent was still boiling and he could choose to devour people. Don't think that you are the most powerful person in the world just because you defeated a few superpowers. Compared to us hidden living fossils, you are still far, far away. A half-step sacred venerable. Jiang Tian's expression didn't change at all. Haha, that's equivalent to a half-step sky immortal. In my eyes, you are just ants that I can crush easily. Kong Teichu, you are too arrogant. The European civilization is extremely brilliant, and the dignity of the royal family is not to be challenged. Then rumble. The void trembled. Under Caslo III's lead, another 6 saint kings arrived one after another. 7 sage kings and 1 half-step sacred venerable. A total of 8 giants led the 8 reclusive royalty in Europe. A total of 5,000 to 6,000 royal family overlords surrounded Jiang Tian and the others in a fan-shaped formation. Kong Teichu, admit defeat. We know that you have been severely injured in the battle with Yi Tianren. You are no match for him. They laughed wickedly. Some of their auras were as cold as the Alps, some were as hot as flames, some were as powerful as emperors, and some were as heavy as Mount Blanc. You want to take advantage of me? At this moment, Jiang Tian suddenly understood and asked with a faint smile. No wonder the reclusive royalty, which had been lying low all this while, suddenly appeared. That day in the East Sea's King's Villa, after Jiang Tian defeated Yi Tianren, he had forcefully performed a saber technique that reversed time and space to save Yi Tianren. He had consumed a large amount of qi, blood, and quintessential essence, causing his hair to turn white and his aura to weaken. In the eyes of the Western reclusive royalty, this had already damaged his lifespan. Without 20 to 30 years of hard work, he would not be able to recover to his peak state. Logically speaking, it was not a bad idea for them to think this way. However, they did not know that Jiang Tian had already reached the phenomenal success stage of the Gung Metal Divine Body at that time and had many elixirs. In fact, he had completely recovered in a few days. Jiang Tian had set foot in the heavenly star small world in an extremely secretive manner. In their eyes, Jiang Tian was cultivating in seclusion and healing his injuries. You Kong Teichu are not simple. We have to do this. Edward Vi sneered sinisterly. But we are doing this for the fate of mankind. We want to capture you and send you to the immortals and gods of the dimensional world. For the well-being of all mankind, we have to do this. You guys are far too weak. Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully and snorted. I heard that the Holy See and the Brahmin also want to kill me. Why don't you come out together? I can't be bothered to challenge you. Come out together and let me kill you all. Ah, I've heard that Master Kong has always been generous and powerful. Today I see that you are indeed worthy of your reputation. A streak of holy and dazzling light illuminated the entire sky, and even the scorching sun in the sky paled in comparison. Everyone looked up, including the holy kings with reclusive royalty. They were momentarily blinded. Many golden airships 100 meters long flew out from the depths of St. Peter's Basilica. The airships were engraved with crosses, pictures of the crucifixion and many biblical stories. They emitted a holy white light and were also equipped with cannons in many pavilions. This is the divine airship of the Holy See. Legend has it that they would ride this divine airship when they were patrolling the world in the Middle Ages. In cross continents and oceans. I never thought it really existed. Many European overlords exclaimed. They couldn't believe it. After all, aircraft were invented in modern times. Many people used to think that the history and legends that existed in the Holy See scriptures were just the Holy See blowing their own trumpet. After seeing it today, they knew that the rumors were true. However, Zhang Tian didn't care. Battleships, he had seen too many in the universe, too many to count. These golden airships were too weak in defense and attack. They couldn't even withstand a single blow. They were even worse than Fang Jingxiang's bronze warship. The Holy... They are also here to bully the weak. They are just a bunch of hypocrites. Therefore the Middle Ages had a grudge against the Holy See. When the 8 royal overlords saw this, their expressions were complicated. There was some disdain, resentment, and fear. At this moment our common enemy is the eastern demon Kong Techu. We should put aside our previous grudges and work together. Edward Vi comforted them and took the lead to bow to the golden airship. That's right. The other royal overlords also bowed and lowered their heads to show their respect and cooperation. The golden airships hovered in the air. In the foremost golden airship, bishops in council and cardinals appeared one after another, emitting bright holy light. They were all Holy King-level powerhouses. 9 Holy King-level bishops in council and cardinals. This time the Holy See has put in a lot of effort. Looks like they are determined to win this time. We may not be able to take the lead and kill Kong Techu for the first time. At this moment, seeing such a lineup, many European reclusive royalty were shocked and their expressions changed. After the bishops in council and cardinals appeared, they didn't immediately attack Zhang Tian. Instead they bowed deeply as if waiting for someone to arrive. Finally, with the help of a bishop in council, an old man wearing a gold-trimmed robe with a black cross hanging in front of his chest slowly walked out of the golden airship. He was holding a gemstone scepter that emitted a dazzling light and had a golden crown on his head. Pope. Oh my God, I finally see the Pope. Instantly, hundreds of thousands of clergy and believers at the scene kowtowed one after another with hot tears in their eyes. They were fanatical and devout, wishing that they could kiss his toes to show their respect. Although the Pope was very old, his tall body was as majestic as a mountain. His back was straight and his silver hair was crystal clear. His face looked as if it had been carved by a knife, and his eyes were as wise and deep as the stars. Coupled with the holy light around him, overflowing with a strong, proud, holy and cold aura, he was like a real god overlooking the world, awe-inspiring and inviolable. The huge aura that had been cultivated by being in a high position for a long time made no one dare to underestimate him. Because he was the current Pope of the Holy See, the ruler of the Holy See, St. Louis. He had great power and more than 1 billion believers. Kong Techu, the Holy See wants to kill you because you announced that you are a god and misinterpreted the scriptures of our Holy See, twisting the meaning of the word, primordial. The Pope spoke, his voice as loud as a bell, shaking everyone's hearts. There was a supreme majesty that was clearly transmitted to the ears of everyone present. But you know, there is only one God in the world. That is the true God that the Holy See believes in. You are confusing right and wrong, you are confusing the world, you are blaspheming the true God. His eyes shot out a holy light that seemed to have substance, blazing fiercely. He said coldly, "Therefore the Holy See must kill you, trace back to the original, and purify the world of the faith that you have polluted. What is your name?" Zhang Tian flung his sleeves and asked calmly. An old man, the current Pope of the Holy See of the Vatican, St. Louis. The Pope replied calmly. You have the word, saint, in your name. In fact, I have observed the history of the Holy See. Every pope, leader of the crusade and the chief adjudicator of the Holy See have this word. Zhang Tian said calmly, but there is no family in the West with this surname. This means that you are from the holy race of light in the depths of the universe. You can fool these fools, but you can't fool me. You are only born with the ability to control light, good at absorbing faith and strong recovery abilities. You are not true gods. Moreover, in the universe, the human race and the holy race of light have always been mortal enemies. God said, "Let there be light," so there is light. In fact, this light was not created by you on your own initiative. Instead, it was transported by plundering the light of other humans and even the energy of stars. Zhang Tian's face was full of mockery as he said calmly, "And you eat the food of light. In the long run, it will lead to the loss and exhaustion of light, which will bring endless darkness. Countless humans will fall into coldness, hunger, and death. Or you can condense the holy light and create a sun to facilitate the absorption of light, but it will cause extreme drought, burn the forest, crack the earth, and lead to famine. Back then, when Hou Yi shot down the sun, he was shooting at you or those bastards that you believe in." As soon as Zhang Tian spoke these words, he brazenly revealed an ancient secret. The entire scene was once again shocked and everyone was dumbstruck. Chapter 10:17. Many people found it hard to believe that the gods of the West had gone to the East. When Hou Yi shot down the sun, weren't the 9 demons of ancient Wuxia such as Tao Wu, Chiseltooth, Jiaoying, Defeng, Feng Kong and Xianxia? In fact, when Zhang Tian was reading Huainanzi and many other ancient books, he studied the legend of Hou Yi shooting the sun during Emperor Yao's time. Yao ordered Yi to kill Chiseltooth in the wild, kill Jiaoying above the fierce water, capture Defeng in the pond of Qingqiu, shoot the 10 suns up, kill Tao Wu, break Xianxia in Dongting, and capture Feng Kong in the mulberry forest. Later on, Yi unified all the tribes and countries in the east and formed a powerful country. Because the country was formed by many tribes that worshipped the sun, it was called the 10-Sun Country, in the classic of mountains and seas. At that time, Zhang Tian suspected that 9 of the 10 suns that appeared at that time were the extremely powerful Holy Clan of Light, or suns created by them. However, he had never seen the real Holy Clan of Light, so he didn't take it to heart. Now he was 90% sure of his deduction. And Hou Yi, according to historical records, was the leader of the Youqiong tribe. After studying many historical records, Zhang Tian believed that the Youqiong tribe was a misinterpretation of the Youqiong tribe. At that time, Hou Yi's tribe should have an artificial sky. However, as for why it disappeared and how it disappeared, Zhang Tian couldn't figure it out due to the limited information. At this time, with every deduction that Zhang Tian made, St. Louis's face turned colder. "Kong Teichu, you devil." By the time Zhang Tian finished speaking, the Pope's face was already covered in frost. His gaze was extremely cold and his killing intent soared into the sky. "You're called light, but you're actually the biggest devil. You've caused the imbalance of light. This is the first time I've heard that you're gods." Zhang Tian's final words were like the morning bell and evening drum, making people feel enlightened. It was like a great bell, shaking people's hearts and making many people realize the truth. What? Could it be that what Kong Teichu said was true? That the Holy See really came from the outer realms, from the depths of the universe and is not of our race? Reclusive royalty tycoons were all surprised. Obviously, this was the first time they had heard of this strange story. However, thinking about it carefully, Zhang Tian's words did make sense. The scriptures of the Holy See clearly recorded that God came from beyond the heavens and created mankind. He also sent a great flood disaster to punish mankind for their sins. He also chose 1,000 sinless people to board Noah's Arkansas. In the scriptures of the Holy See, the true God they believed in had once punished the Pharaoh in Egypt by sending down 10 calamities, such as the blood calamity and the plague of locusts. Moreover, in the struggle for religious and imperial power, the powerhouses of the Holy See had created more than one astronomical disaster, such as 10 consecutive days, heavy snowstorms, floods, and so on. These long-lasting disasters could destroy an entire country. Killing humans on such a large scale, so bloody and brutal without any bottom line to intimidate heretics and protect the faith. He was worse than a beast. This was definitely not something a kind God or human could do. You're blaspheming the true God again. Our God loves the world. Pope's face was filled with rage as he roared loudly. The world only knew that they were the spokesman of God, but they did not know of the existence of the Holy Tribe of Light. They did not know that the so-called God was the powerhouses of the Holy Tribe of Light. The Holy Tribe of Light was a mysterious race in the starry sky, billions of light years away from Earth. Although St. Louis knew of the existence of the Holy Tribe of Light, and he himself had 1/8 of their bloodline, he only knew a little about their origins. He did not expect Jiang Tian to know so much about them. If this were to spread, the believers of the Holy See would definitely disappear completely. The Heavenly Kingdom dimension world would be furious. Therefore, at this moment he decided, Jiang Tian must be killed and he could not be left alive for even a day. It doesn't matter if the Holy See is a human or a true god. At least they are kind, but you Kong Techu are the supreme devil. Suddenly, a vast golden light spread out, covering a radius of a few kilometers, and ethereal Buddhist chanting sounded. Kasayapa Guru, surrounded by many Brahmin protectors and ascetic monks, also arrived. He was dressed in linen clothes, barefoot and without a single piece of gold or silver on his body. He looked extremely simple. This was the style of Brahmin who emphasized meditation and asceticism, cutting off worldly pleasures to stabilize the Taoist heart. It was rumored that he was more than 2,000 years old. But from his appearance he looked like a young man with sharp eyebrows, bright eyes, a ruddy complexion, tight skin and a long breath. Nonsense, how is my master a devil? Tang Linglong was so angry that her face turned red. Immortal Master Jiang once killed the Zhenyu demon king Nie Mingyuan. I want to know, where did Nie Mingyuan's soul devourer divine sense go? Kasayapa Guru questioned with burning eyes. It's in my mind. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and did not deny it. You are one with the devil and you have killed countless people. If you are not a devil, then what are you? Kasayapa Guru questioned. 300 ascetic monks followed behind him. Each of them had profound dharma power and lived for 200 to 300 years. They looked extremely old and frail. However, Kasayapa Guru was the only one who looked like he was in his 30s. His face was ruddy and his body was strong. Isn't he more than 2,000 years old? Why does he look so young? Tang Linglong and the others were surprised. Pedantic. How can you say such shallow words with your wisdom? Are you pretending to be crazy? Jiang Tian's eyes were like torches as he sneered. Dharma spells, martial arts, fiend arts, demon arts and cultivation are just cultivation methods to strengthen oneself. It's like a knife. In the hands of a chef it can be used to cook, but in the hands of a criminal, it can be used to kill and rob. Arts, energy and weapons are the same. There is no good or evil in them. It all depends on who has them. If you have a sharp weapon you can kill. You can also help the weak, punish the evil and save the people. Even if you kill someone you can't be judged as evil. Killing the evil is good, you can uphold justice. Killing the good and bullying the weak is evil. What a glib tongue Kong Techu. A devil is a devil. No matter how you quibble you are still a devil. Kasayapa Guru sneered. He did not argue with Jiang Tian. Instead he put the blame on him. I'm a devil? If you ask me, you are the devil among the devils. Jiang Tian looked at him with a half smile. His sharp eyes seemed to penetrate his soul. Kasayapa Guru's face froze. His pupils shrank as he frowned. Why do you say that I am the devil among the devils? You have lived for 2,000 years, but you have possessed 10 bodies. This is your 11th body. Jiang Tian said mockingly. You crush people's souls and possess their bodies. This is crueler than killing people. If this is not a devil, then what is? As soon as Jiang Tian finished speaking. How dare you? What possession? Killing? What nonsense? This is the miracle of reincarnation. He is the incarnation of Lord Brahma. His divine powers are limitless. How can you possibly understand this? Behind him, many of Pola's disciples shouted angrily. Their voices turned into rolling sound waves that rushed towards Jiang Tian. He Kong Techu, you are spouting nonsense and slandering the Brahmin. Today I will kill you. Kasayapa Guru's face was cold. His eyes flashed with killing intent. It was just as Jiang Tian said. Jia Yi did extend his life by possessing bodies. The Brahmin's so-called nirvana rebirth, or the so-called reincarnation of God, was just finding believers with suitable physiques to crush their souls and occupy their bodies to be the carrier of his own rebirth. Therefore, even if he possessed a 3-year-old child, he would still be able to recite tens of thousands of words of scripture. And he would also know the history of his previous life and the teachings of the Brahmin like the back of his hand. This made the believers regard him as a miracle and worship him even more. In the teachings of the Brahmin, this evil act of possession was glorified as reincarnation. It was full of holiness. What's the point of talking about good and evil? If you can't win an argument, you will have to fight in the end. Jiang Tian chuckled and mocked. If that's the case, then let's fight. Haha, Kong Teichu killed a member of the British royal family and destroyed Buckingham Palace. The British royal family will be the first to hunt him down. Edward VI of the British royal family laughed strangely, took a step forward and shouted, "Holy See and Brahmin, please take a step back." As a matter of fact, these words were completely sophistry. In the United Kingdom there were several reclusive royalty. They did not belong to the same group and even had grudges against each other. When Jiang Tian massacred the henchmen of the Gathering of Darkness, Prince Charles, who was killed in Buckingham Palace, belonged to the last royal family in the United Kingdom, the Hanover royal family. However, Edward VI thought that Jiang Tian had not recovered yet and was a pushover. He was afraid that the church might take the lead, so he twisted his words and fought to be the first to fight with Jiang Tian. That's right. Kong Teichu's head belongs to the European reclusive royalty. No one can take it away. The other royal family leaders also shouted angrily, their fighting spirit surging. Edward VI, everyone please. Pope, St. Louis and Kasayapa Guru looked at each other and did not stop or fight for it. Jiang Tian shook his head in disappointment and said, "Edward VI, you can't do it. You'd better come at me together. I alone am enough to kill you." Edward VI was furious. As a member of the royal family, their blood was noble and they were born with pride. Moreover, he was once an invincible half-step holy venerable. So what if Jiang Tian defeated Yi Tianren? In his eyes, Yi Tianren was just a child who had just learned to walk. If it were not for the depletion of spiritual energy and the royal family hiding in order to preserve their strength, Yi Tianren would not have the chance to show off his strength. Moreover, Yi Tianren had just advanced and was defeated by Yu before his strength stabilized. The strength of a real half-step holy venerable was not something that could be imagined. He looked at Jiang Tian with disdain and calmly rode the majestic lion under him. Suddenly he raised his scepter and smashed it down on Jiang Tian's head. Boom! The scepter flew across the sky, releasing a dazzling light that contained endless power and energy. The sky was torn apart by the terrifying energy. Then the light shone brightly and slashed toward Jiang Tian. The ground cracked from under his feet. A 3-meter-deep fissure spread toward Jiang Tian. In an instant the fissure was a kilometer long like a huge canyon. The royal family is indeed powerful. Edward VI is indeed a half-step holy venerable. Even after so long he still can't be underestimated. Many people exclaimed. The energy contained in the scepter was enough to destroy a high-rise building and a cruiser. Even the Pope St. Louis was shocked. Kasayapa Guru also nodded slightly with a look of approval. After all, Edward VI was someone who could fight with the last holy venerable of the Holy See, St. Paul. Chapter 10:18. If you don't attack together you'll regret it. Jiang Tian laughed and waved his fingers. Clang. A clanging sound of metal clashing could be heard. A gung metal chi soldier about a few hundred meters long, cut through the sky like a knife cutting water. What? Edward VI was instantly alarmed. He exclaimed and raised his scepter to block. Shield. At the same time, behind him, the 9 generals of the royal family jumped into the air and took a few steps forward. Every one of them raised a tall golden shield and protected Edward VI like an iron barrier. They were all of noble birth and belonged to the royal family. They were of pure blood and were very powerful. They had their own strengths. These golden shields and the armor on their bodies were made by famous masters of gold cultivation. They had been added with meteoric iron and were of extraordinary quality. There were many patterns and symbols engraved on them and they contained powerful magic power. They could withstand cannon fire and were not afraid of missiles. However, before Jiang Tian's finger, all of his attacks and defenses were useless. Bang! Like a thunderbolt, the energy of the scepter exploded in an instant and formed a cloud ring ripple that spread in all directions. The cloud ring rippled and spread out for a few kilometers in an instant. Many of the royal family members were thrown off their horses and screamed as they retreated. Clang! Sparks flew and a sound like a huge bell rang out. The golden light flickered and the golden shields in the hands of the great gold cultivators were cut open as if they were made of tofu. Puff! Puff! Blood spurted and dyed the sky red. Countless shield fragments shot out in all directions faster than shrapnel and instantly pierced through the armor and bodies of the 3 generals of the royal family. They screamed and could not stand still. They were about to fall from the sky. Puff, puff. The few generals were all cut in half by Zhang Tian's gunmetal chi weapon, and before they could say a word, their bodies exploded uncontrollably, turning into sparkling blood and flesh that scattered all over the ground. Oh no! His cultivation is so powerful. Edward Vi was furious, but it was too late. The Gingjin Chi weapon swept across at an incredible angle, cutting through his protective energy shield like tofu. It cut through his layers of medieval armor, broke his scepter and finally slashed through his chest. Blood splattered everywhere as the corpses and organs fell to the ground, creating a cloud of blood. Edward's face was filled with shock before he died. He couldn't believe that Zhang Tian was so powerful. He couldn't believe that he, an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years, would die just like that. Dead silence. The entire place suddenly fell into a dead silence. Fear and disbelief appeared on everyone's faces as they looked at Zhang Tian as if they had seen a demon. Killing a half-step holy venerable with a single finger. In the blink of an eye, he had killed a reclusive royalty and 9 saint-level imperial generals. Originally, they thought that Zhang Tian was seriously injured and had come here to pick up soft persimmons. However, they didn't expect that Zhang Tian's combat power was 10 times more powerful than when he fought with Yi Tianren in the king's mansion in Linzhou. At this moment, everyone felt as if they had been fucked in the zoo. Their faces changed drastically and they were all terrified. Before this, they thought that Zhang Tian was too arrogant when he asked them to attack together. Now it seemed that Zhang Tian was not arrogant at all. He did have the strength to do so. The other imperial family leaders were terrified. Cold sweat broke out on their foreheads as they subconsciously took a few steps back. Among the imperial family members, Edward Vi was the most powerful. The strongest among the others was only a holy king. Suddenly, 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers of the European imperial family retreated a few hundred meters away. Everyone was scared out of their wits. Some were even trembling in fear. I've told you that Kong Teichu is invincible. You can't mess with him. But you didn't listen. That's right. The kindred set up a day imprisonment array on the Sword Tomb Island, but they still couldn't kill him. In the end, the Gathering of Darkness and the European families were annihilated. Many members of the imperial family complained softly. They were terrified and wanted to turn around and run away. Everyone, why don't you get up and attack together? Zhang Tian's face was calm and even had a hint of mockery. However, in Zhang Tian's eyes, the so-called half-sacred venerables were only at the 3rd level of the foundation establishment level. Killing a half-sacred venerables was as easy as killing a chicken for Zhang Tian. It wasn't challenging at all. All the members of the European reclusive royalty and the thousands of people present didn't dare to speak. Kong Teichu, do you really choose to become the enemy of the reclusive royalty? In the end, Henry VIII stepped forward and sighed as if he had no other choice. You killed the deities of the dimension world. We can only capture you to appease their anger. He was trying to persuade and threaten Chen Fan. We still have 8 sacred kings and 6,000 soldiers of the imperial family. I advise you to surrender for the sake of the safety of the human race. As long as you surrender, we won't touch your family and friends. Otherwise, die. Zhang Tian's face suddenly turned cold as he coldly snorted. Reclusive royalty was just an ant to Zhang Tian. He could kill them with a wave of his hand. Zhang Tian had achieved phenomenal success with the gunmetal divine body. He had also activated the purple lightning eyes and transformed into the green dragon mystic water divine body and the green wood divine body. Who in the world could be his match? This was especially true for Henry VIII, who had recklessly threatened his family. That was an unforgivable crime. In this life, Zhang Tian came with guilt and wanted to make up for all his regrets. He valued family and family the most. Henry VIII didn't realize that his words had touched Zhang Tian's bottom line. Death was the only way out for him. Zhang Tian didn't say a word. He gently raised his jade-white right hand and swatted it down as if he was swatting a fly. Plang. Zhang Tian waved his hand. The first giant palm, which was hundreds of meters long, looked like it was made of gold. It emitted a bright metallic luster and was covered with Daoist inscriptions and flashing runes. It fell from the sky like a Buddha's 5-finger mountain. It pressed down on Henry VIII and the Bourbon royalty's camp. You. Henry VIII was furious. He didn't expect Zhang Tian to kill him without saying a word. Kill. He roared. Instead of retreating, he advanced. The Pegasus under him suddenly turned into a stream of light. He instantly broke the sound barrier and rushed toward Zhang Tian. At the same time, 7 or 8 overlords of the Bourbon royalty rode their Pegasus and rushed toward Zhang Tian. They were all powerful and strong. The Pegasus was also a mutant with the bloodline of the unicorn, so its speed was unparalleled. They wanted to win by surprise. They wanted to surround Zhang Tian and kill him in one fell swoop. Behind them, thousands of overlords of the Bourbon royalty followed closely. They swarmed toward Qin Fan and roared. But when they ran 100 meters, they found that their speed suddenly decreased as if they had fallen into an invisible glue. In the blink of an eye, they couldn't move at all. What's going on? I can't move. Oh my God. Henry VIII and the overlords of the Bourbon royalty looked up at the giant palm that was getting closer and closer. They screamed and cried as if they had lost their parents. Bang! Thump! As they screamed in despair and helplessness, the giant golden palm fell like a 10,000-ton mountain. Henry VIII and a few overlords of the immortal state level were crushed. It was crushed to pieces in an instant, and the energy contained in it exploded uncontrollably. Bang! The ground shook violently. Dust flew and boulders were thrown into the air. The entire Colosseum seemed to have experienced an earthquake. When the smoke dissipated and the giant palm disappeared, more than half of the Colosseum collapsed. Countless granite stones turned into powder and a giant palm-shaped pit of 1,000 meters long appeared on the hard marble floor. In the giant pit, bodies were piled up and blood flowed like a river. Armors and weapons were broken into pieces. Including Henry VIII, no less than 1,000 members of the Bourbon royal family were spared. All of them were killed. In the Middle Ages, the Bourbon royal family, which had a glorious history of several hundred years, had completely disappeared from this world. Everyone was dumbfounded. He had killed a saint king, 8 saints of the Bourbon royalty, and thousands of immortal state and transcendent state overlords. That was too terrifying. It was completely beyond people's imagination. What was more terrifying was, when Zhang Tian's giant golden palm covered them, thousands of people couldn't move and didn't even have a chance to escape. What kind of magic art was that? It was too terrifying. He is so powerful. The other leaders of the royal families were terrified and their hands trembled as they spoke. They had wanted to crush Zhang Tian with their numbers, but now it seemed that it was useless. In front of Zhang Tian, no matter how many people there were, they were just ants and cannon fodder. Chapter 10:19. Looks like we can only wait for the Brahmin and the Holy See to join forces and pick up the leftovers. Castillo III lowered his head slightly to hide the fear in his eyes. Although he was unwilling, he had to accept this reality. He made a prompt decision and led his people out of the camp. They occupied a large building nearby and watched from afar. Fear was contagious. The leaders of the other famous royal families all trembled in fear. They followed suit and left the battlefield to watch from the sidelines. The Holy See and the Brahmin have a longer history than most of the reclusive royalty in Europe. Kong Taichu won't win this time. A royal archmage in a black robe lowered his head and said in a low voice, Zhang Taichu, you kill people and annihilate clans at the drop of a hat. You can annihilate thousands or tens of thousands of people with a single palm strike. Indeed, there was a loud boom. The stars in the sky turned from day to night. A funnel-shaped vortex appeared in the sky. The stars in the vortex flickered as if it was connected to another world. Kasayapa Guru had made his move. Today Jia Yi will slay the demon. Jia Yi turned into a beam of light and shot towards Zhang Tian, annihilating the sun and creating the stars. This is the power of Lord Brahma, the magical power of the East. Many members of the European royal family exclaimed. Their expressions were grave. The almighty Kasayapa Guru has finally made his move. This bastard will lose his life today. Humph. No matter how strong Kong Taichu is, he can't be compared to our ancestral master. He can't even withstand one attack. Kill this demon and show the power of the Brahmin. Many Brahmin followers knelt down and prayed sincerely. Some of them raised their arms and cheered for Kasayapa Guru. Brahmin worshipped Lord Brahma. Brahma was creation, the origin of the universe and the truth. The goal of cultivation was to unite oneself with Brahma and attain the Mahasvara divine power. All roads lead to the same destination. Brahmins and Wuxia's Daoist techniques were naturally Chimenduanjia. They used the spiritual energy and power emitted from the outside to strengthen themselves. Their essence was similar. At this moment, Jia Ye's command was like a mantra, changing the laws of this area. He drew upon the spirit energy of heaven and earth as well as the sunlight, and converted them into the power of his true form, the boundless power of Brahma, in an attempt to kill Zhou Xian. Wherever the Kashyapa guru's light beam passed, it was like a blazing sun in the sky. A supreme aura of light was emitted, forming a violent pressure. Everyone present was sent flying in all directions like straws. It was a complete mess. This is the pressure of a celestial immortal. How terrifying! Even the Saint King-level royalty felt suffocated. They were all moved and stumbled back. Kashyapa Guru is so strong. No wonder he was the strongest man in Brahman 1,000 years ago. Everyone felt extremely hot. Their skin was cracking and their hair was drying up. The blood in their bodies felt like it was going to dry up. The celestial immortal level seems to be even stronger than Senior Yi Tianren. Even Huiqing Tian Zhao Yuankuan and Wei Fiaolong could not withstand the pressure. Their faces were pale and their bodies were on the verge of collapsing. Master, be careful of this person. Although Situ Shao could withstand the violent pressure, it was not easy for him. He could not help but worry about Zhou Xian. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed the distance of a few kilometers and arrived in front of Zhou Xian. He threw a punch. A layer of dazzling golden light appeared on his ferocious fist. The golden light was made up of many small runes formed by the power of Brahma. It was the supreme secret technique of the Brahmin. Do you think you can challenge me? You're too weak. In response, Zhou Xian only smiled coldly and threw a punch. Suddenly the void cracked, the sun and the moon dimmed and the earth cracked. Everything in the surroundings seemed to be crushed by this punch. This punch could shake a giant city and destroy a mountain. This punch was nameless. It was a punch that Zhou Xian used purely his physical strength and the power of his divine body. From the side, it could be seen that Zhou Xian's spine was arched like a huge dragon. His entire person had turned into a divine crossbow that was about to shoot out with anger. And that delicate white fist was the spear that could pierce through everything. Bang! When Zhou Xian threw the punch, everyone felt the world shake. The entire city of Rome seemed to have disappeared, and there was only this punch that could shake a mountain. They even had an illusion that they were knocked out of the world and lost contact with their surroundings. This punch was powerful enough to kill an exalted immortal. It was not inferior to the strength that Zhou Xian used to defeat Li Longyuan. Oh no! Seeing this punch, Kashyapa Guru was terrified. His face changed color and he tried to step back. He had been reincarnated 10 times and had been honed for 2,000 years. However, he had lost his sharpness and fighting spirit. He was too conservative and steady. Of course, his conservatism and steadiness were not without reason. However, compared to Zhou Xian, the speed of his retreat was too slow. Zhou Xian's punch landed on his fist. His physical body had been carefully selected, and it was extremely miraculous and powerful. Moreover, it carried the merit and cultivation of his 10 lifetimes. It was supported by the power of faith of millions of believers, nourished and tempered by the faith of countless believers. It was almost indestructible. With his powerful body he could easily kill an earth-level deity and dominate the entire earth without using his mind power. However, Zhou Xian's punch. The Brahma divine runes on Kashyapa Guru's fist shattered like glass and scattered in all directions. Then, under his horrified gaze, the skin on his fist suddenly split open, and golden blood spurted out in all directions. Then the finger bones exploded one by one like firecrackers and spread toward the arm. Guru Jia Yi felt as if a high-speed train had crashed into his fist. The force of the impact was unstoppable and it was more than 10,000 caddies heavy. Swoosh! Like a cannonball, Guru Jia Yi was sent flying back even faster than he had come from. He streaked across the sky for a few kilometers, smashing through a few Roman pillars that could be encircled by 4 people. He crashed into the Senate of the Empire, causing the ground to shake. No one could see it. However, Kashyapa Guru's face was filled with horror. The muscles in his right hand were completely shattered. His meridians and muscle fibers were in a mess. His broken bones were exposed and blood was flowing out. It was a ghastly sight. This kid is so strong. Even though the force of the punch had disappeared, Kasayapa Guru could still feel his internal organs and meridians trembling. It was as if there were tens of thousands of steel knives stirring in his body. He felt something sweet in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. With just the strength of his physical body, he actually broke through my Brahman's divine runes and shattered my fist. Kasayapa Guru's face was solemn as if he was facing a formidable enemy. His eyes shone with a cold light as he hurriedly performed a secret technique to repair his fist. Is he really an extraterrestrial civilization, a reincarnated devil, or an extraterrestrial visitor, as the legends say? An unprecedented sense of danger surged in his heart. His Brahman energy gushed out, his blood surged, and the meridians on his skin grew. His broken fist was repaired in the blink of an eye, but he still looked at Zhang Tian in disbelief, and his face was filled with shock. At this moment he could see that Zhang Tian's clothes were fluttering in the wind. There was no damage to the surrounding scenery and the disciples were not affected at all. This meant that Zhang Tian did not use his full strength in the punch just now. It was extremely easy for him. What if he had used his full strength? Moreover, he had retreated in advance and neutralized almost half of Zhang Tian's strength. What if he had not retreated? What would have happened to him? Kasayapa Guru's hair stood on end. He had the intention to retreat. Why don't I just leave? Anyway, I can reincarnate endlessly. I can torture Kong Techu to death. Won't I still be the boss? Why is this Kong Techu so strong? Is he still human? This is too scary. Guru Jiayi, he's half a teacher to Shakyamuni. He's a supreme old monster who's lived for 2,000 years. His magic power is unfathomable, yet he was sent flying by Zhang Taichu with one punch. Everyone was flabbergasted and they were shocked to the extreme. This kind of ending was too unexpected. Everyone could not believe it. It was as if they were dreaming and they could not come back to their senses for a long time. In their opinion, no matter how strong Zhang Tian was, he was still a junior who had started cultivating in his mother's womb for less than 30 years. How could he have lived for 2,000 years, been undefeated in 10,000 battles, and had a wealth of experience that was comparable to the cultivation textbook Kasayapa Guru? You think you can kill me with your pitiful skills? You're too weak. Go back to the Ganges River. Zhang Tian retracted his fist and walked in the air with his hands behind his back as if he was walking on flat ground. He flew calmly towards the north of Rome. He looked in the direction where Jiayi was and sneered. In the face of an army of tens of thousands of powerhouses and huge pressure, Zhang Tian was as calm as a breeze. He asked with a chuckle. Didn't the last holy sage of the Holy See, St. Paul, come back to life? Didn't he come back to life? Let's attack together. Where the hell is he? As soon as he said that, the whole place fell into silence. The entire Rome, the entire Vatican, and this area was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone was so shocked by Zhang Tian's monstrous aura and supreme domineering aura that their jaws dropped to the ground and shattered. Chapter 10:20. Everyone was stunned by Zhang Tian. Was Zhang Tian really going to challenge two old monsters who had lived for over 1,000 years by himself? The last holy sage of the Holy See, St. Paul, was a contemporary of the founder of the Holy See, Messiah. Messiah was known as the Son of God, the founder of the Holy See, and was proficient in doctrine. St. Paul, on the other hand, was proficient in holy spells and killing. He had unlimited divine powers and was known as the guardian of the Holy See. He had received the blessings of the true God and was the strongest cultivator below the true God. Kasayapa Guru and St. Paul were both very strong and difficult to deal with. Zhang Tian should have defeated them one by one, but now he wanted to fight both of them alone. Isn't this too arrogant? Isn't this too arrogant? Immortal Master Zhang. Sigh. Yingling Laozu looked worried. He wanted to say something but stopped. In the end he just sighed. He also thought that Zhang Tian was too arrogant. However, Zhang Tian had already made a bold statement. What was done could not be undone. He could only order the many Wuxia reclusive royalty cultivators to prepare for battle in case of any accidents. Kong Techu, as you wish. I'm out to kill you to prove that the Holy See is the world's #1 orthodoxy. An old voice came from the largest golden ship in the depths of the clouds. Sounded like a giant cannon. Before the person appeared, the violent pressure came first. Half of the city of Rome and the towering trees were instantly reduced to dust. Huge rocks jumped up and then collapsed. Some holy kings of the royal family were so shocked that their faces turned pale and they felt dizzy. Some immortal state cultivators even fainted on the spot. A dazzling holy light shot out from the golden ship. It was like a shocking rainbow that crossed thousands of meters in the sky. It instantly arrived in front of Zhang Tian and punched out. The last Holy Lord of the Holy See, St. Paul, who had lived for more than 1,000 years, also attacked Zhang Tian. When he clashed with the reclusive royalty, the strength that Zhang Tian had displayed was already comparable to a heavenly immortal or holy venerate. There was no need for the current Pope, St. Louis, and the many Brahmin disciples to make a move. Going up there would only result in death. Therefore both the Holy See and the Brahmin instantly used their most powerful trump cards. He only wanted to win with a single strike and end the battle quickly. Bang! Zhang Tian countered with a punch. Instantly, St. Paul was also sent flying hundreds of meters away, but he seemed to be in a better condition and was not injured. Everyone was dumbfounded. He was sent flying by a punch again? Kong Teichu is too strong. Everyone was shocked and revealed looks of disbelief. Kong Teichu's strength is far beyond our imagination. The Ying family's old ancestor sighed with a trace of fear, lingering fear, and a trace of gratification. He thought that his cultivation was only about the same as St. Paul's, or even slightly inferior. If he were to fight with Zhang Tian, how could he survive? A moment later, St. Paul and Kasyapa Guru flew out of the ruins together. One in front and one behind, they stood still a kilometer away from Zhang Tian, as if they were secretly accumulating power for an even more violent attack. Are the others not going to make a move? St. Louis, you are the Pope. Don't you dare to show your face? Are you asking your ancestors to come out and be a coward? Facing the two supreme giants who had been famous for thousands of years, Zhang Tian's face was full of mockery as he coldly glanced at the others. Kong Teichu, don't you dare be so arrogant. St. Louis had never been humiliated like this before. His face was livid as he stepped on the holy light and led many holy kings to wait for an opportunity to attack Zhang Tian. Originally they were also shocked by Zhang Tian. But now that the two giants had attacked, they were not afraid of Zhang Tian anymore and thought that there was an opportunity to take advantage of. With the two supreme giants attacking, Zhang Tian would definitely be exhausted and unable to take care of himself. If everyone attacked Zhang Tian from a distance, what could Zhang Tian do? Today the Holy See, the Brahmin, and the reclusive royalty are here to kill you. Tens of thousands of people in powerhouses have gathered. How can you be a match for them? Pope shouted angrily and then shouted, let's attack together. Everyone attack together. I don't believe that Zhang Taichu is a match for us. He can't hold on at all. Pope's fanning of the flames actually made some sense. For a moment, everyone was tempted. Not only did the powerhouses of the Holy See attack, but the retreating royals and Brahmin also attacked Zhang Tian together. Rumble. The ground shook violently. Close to 10,000 members of the royal family rushed out like a tide. Their heavy footsteps were like the beating of drums. Countless members of the royal family leaped over the buildings and the streets, charging at Zhang Tian in all directions. Their battle intent was surging and their killing intent was soaring. Their battle cries were like rolling thunder as they rushed toward Zhang Tian courageously. Suddenly the sound of footsteps became the sound of breaking air. Some were royals. They stepped into the air, rode on flying horses, big birds, or stepped on artifacts and swooped toward Zhang Tian. Swoosh, swoosh. All the Brahmin attacked together. They were like streaks of azure light piercing through heaven and earth, closing in on Zhang Tian from all directions. Winning by numbers? Shameless. Tang Linglong flew in the air and the disposable flying sword burst out to meet the Brahmin powerhouses. Kill. Hu Qingtian was so angry that his face turned blue. He roared, stepped into the air and killed the European reclusive royalty army. The god-killing spear flew across the sky, killing everyone in sight. Huang Linger's beautiful eyes were piercingly cold and tenacious. She didn't say a word. She controlled the wood spirit chi and green branches flew across the sky to strangle the enemy. Wuxia royal family, listen to my order. Help Master Kong even if all of you die in battle. Yingying Laozu also issued an order. Many royals roared together and began to kill. They were all powerful. Like a dam stopping the tide of the enemy, they slowed down the attack immediately. Retreat. I can deal with them alone. Zhang Tian laughed loudly and ordered the Tianqing school Huaxia reclusive royalty and long formation soldiers to retreat from the battlefield. Listen to Master's order, retreat. Everyone was eager to fight. They didn't want Jiang Tian to take the risk alone, but Yi Tianren issued an order. He knew that once Jiang Tian attacked, it would be a weapon of mass destruction like a nuclear explosion. Everyone was in a stalemate. Not only could they not help Jiang Tian, but they would also hinder Jiang Tian's ability to exert the maximum combat power. Although everyone was worried, they understood this point. They obeyed the order and retreated from the battlefield. Many Brahmin and Western overlords poured in like a dam that had been opened. Their attacks became fierce again. Dharma treasures were everywhere, emitting a huge wave of Dharma power. Golden spells floated and lingered. Unlike Wuxia, who liked to use swords and knives, most Brahmin disciples used bells, tripods, alms bowls, pagodas, Vajra pestle, Buddhist staffs and other strange weapons. Each ray of light represented an immortal state warrior or holy king. Holy light filled the air. Many golden flying ships of the Holy See flew across the sky, firing at full power and closing in on Chen Fan. On the side of the ship facing Jiang Tian, the long barrels of the giant cannons of holy light protruded from the battlements. After a tremor, a huge pillar of holy light was shot at Jiang Tian. At the same time, Situ Shao, Huqing Tian and the others all held their weapons tightly and looked at the sky nervously. Numerous silhouettes could be seen densely packed together. Numerous magical treasures covered the sky, causing one's heart to palpitate in fear. It could be said that the Brahmins, the Christian Church and the European reclusive royal family could easily crush Nieming Yuan's covenant of darkness in terms of resources, strength and numbers. The three powerful forces joined forces. This was indeed the most dangerous battle since Jiang Tian's rise. It could even be said that this was the most glorious and luxurious lineup in the past 1,000 years. They couldn't help but feel nervous. Good. I'm afraid I'm going to eat till my stomach is round today. However, the old dragon's saliva was dripping, and his face was filled with gloating. Master once killed 600 exalted immortals. These people are still far too lacking. Yi Tianren also laughed mockingly. They knew Jiang Tian's current strength. It could be said that if Jiang Tian had not gone to the stellar sky domain, such a siege would have been too tiring for Jiang Tian to deal with. However, Jiang Tian had broken through twice in the stellar sky domain and transformed his divine body twice. His strength was more than 10 times what it was before. Jiang Tian even suppressed golden core cultivators and took down the heavenly star small world. Jiang Tian was not even afraid of real immortals, let alone these saint venerables. That's more like it. 1 or 2 people. Even if it's Jia Yi or St. Paul, I can't be bothered to fight. 10,000 people, very good. Your heads are enough for me to sharpen my sword once. At this moment, Jiang Tian had already arrived above the ancient bestial arena in the north of Rome. With a chuckle, he suddenly patted the sky-devouring demonic gourd at his waist. Instantly, 10,000 sword lights exploded. The terrifying sword aura and sword intent shone in all directions like the sun. The Brahmin, Holy See and reclusive royalty people did not realize that it was sword light at that moment. They were more inclined to think that there was a sun at his waist. Because it was too bright and too glaring, everything within a radius of a few kilometers was illuminated clearly. Every mountain, every rock, every blade of grass, and every tree reflected a strange halo, appearing holy and pure. What is that? Many people were shocked and stopped in their tracks. However, this light gave people a chilling feeling. Everyone felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. They felt cold from head to toe as if poisonous snakes were crawling across their skin. It made their hair stand on end. Chapter 10:21. Fall back. Kids run. St. Paul and Kasyapa Guru, who were close to Jiang Tian, screamed as if they had seen the devil. Most of the others had sensed the danger, but they did not have the time to fall back because the flying swords were too fast and had already exploded. At this moment, tens of thousands of flying swords swept across the sky like tidal waves crashing against the shore, sweeping in all directions like a hurricane, destroying everything in its path. Tens of thousands of flying swords were like a torrent of steel, like an ocean of sword chi and sword will, surging forward and destroying everything in its path. Smack, 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 smack. Blood and flesh rained down from the sky. Countless broken limbs fell from the sky, almost filling up the entire Colosseum. Arg, arg, arg. Countless screams came from the ground, one after another. One by one, members of the royal family fell, pierced by the flying swords. This was a scene dyed in blood, tragic to the extreme. Jiang Tian's attack had caused blood to flow for 10 miles, and tens of thousands of corpses lay on the ground. The Holy See, the royal family, and the Brahmin were all severely injured. The entire north city of Rome, within a radius of a few miles, was filled with corpses and blood, almost filling up the streets and submerging the ancient buildings. Among them were 3 earth god Brahmin elites, 6 Saint King-level reclusive royalty leaders, and 8 red bishops of the Holy See. This time Jiang Tian had killed at least 5,000 people. All of them had their throats slit and died on the spot. Those who were lucky enough to escape death were so scared that they fell to the ground like dead dogs, trembling in fear. They were already scared silly. How could this be? How could this be? Pope and St. Louis scrambled back to the golden airship, looking around. Kong Teichu, you have destroyed the orthodoxy of the Holy See. He saw that there were not many of the Holy See's troops left. He could not help but tremble, tears rolling down his cheeks as he cried. He's actually so powerful. Castillo IV fell into the pile of corpses. His entire body was drenched in blood, and his armor was shattered, revealing his white sternum. He screamed miserably as though he had lost his parents. His royal family, more than 1,000 people, had almost all fallen. Only a few melons and 2 dates were left. It was impossible for them to regain their former glory and splendor. Before this, many members of the royal family felt that Jiang Tian was very arrogant and ignorant. He looked down on everyone and was extremely ferocious. He had repeatedly stirred up a storm of blood. However, at this moment they felt that Jiang Tian was too powerful, too kind, and too low-key. With this kind of strength, if he wanted to sweep away the Holy See, Brahmin, and reclusive royalty, it would only take a wave of his hand. You two actually managed to dodge my flying sword. That's not bad, Jiang Tian said with a smile. St. Paul and Kasyapa Guru were indeed still alive. They dodged most of the sword lights and hovered 3 kilometers away from Jiang Tian. So frightening. However, at this moment the two of them were also horrified. Their bodies were trembling as they stared at Jiang Tian as though they had seen a ghost. Kong Teichu, where did your orthodoxy come from? It's even more powerful than the Kunlun sect. Kasyapa Guru had reincarnated 10 times and had a lifespan of 2,000 years. He had thoroughly understood all the orthodoxies on earth. He had just used more than 10 kinds of powerful secret techniques to crush Jiang Tian. He was sure that he had hit Jiang Tian, but not even a hair on Jiang Tian's body was damaged. Even the previous sect masters of the Kunlun sect didn't have such powerful cultivation. The last holy venerable of the Holy See, St. Paul, was also facing a formidable enemy. His face was extremely solemn and fearful. Cold light shot out from his eyes. I finally believe that you are definitely not a human from this world. You are an outsider. Old fogey, you guys talk too much. Let's fight. Why waste time talking? Jiang Tian chuckled and the second wave of flying swords suddenly erupted. Back off. Kasyapa Guru shouted angrily. Then he flashed in the rain of flying swords and rushed toward Jiang Tian. At this moment he had no other choice. Jiang Tian was fierce and ruthless. He destroyed families, sects, armies, countries, gods, and Buddhas. He destroyed everything. If he was defeated in this battle, the Brahmin sect would be annihilated. Plang. This person's body was strong and his dharma power was deep. He was far more powerful than Yi Tianren. He flashed and waved his fists. He blasted away the flying swords with his powerful Brahma power and closed in on Jiang Tian. Looking at the corpses of the Holy See powerhouses, St. Paul was also in a frenzy. He roared and attacked recklessly. His face was stern. He crossed his fingers and a dazzling cross-light sword condensed in his hand. The speed of his movement technique was extremely fast. He stepped on the air and actually formed layers upon layers of afterimages. He dodged many flying swords and rushed toward Jiang Tian. You two are still too young. The difference in strength is still too great. Jiang Tian sneered and pushed out his palm. Jiang Tian's palm was very casual. It was like a grandpa practicing Tai Chi in the park. However, Jiang Tian's body emitted an endless bright green light. His body was crystal clear like green jade. What was even more terrifying was that behind Jiang Tian actually grew a towering tree that was 1,000 feet tall. The tree was so big that it left a large shadow on the ground. It was like a tree of chaos that could hold up the universe. Between the branches and leaves, there seemed to be stars flickering. It was filled with the chaotic atmosphere of the beginning of the world. The crystal-clear branches stretched into the void. Is that the golden body Dharma power? It's actually a tree. Many people were stunned when they saw it. After all, it was rare to see a tree as a Dharma power. This is the whirling divine tree? Kasyapa Guru's eyes were filled with fear. It was as if he had seen a demon. He had lived for 2,000 years and had lost a lot of his sharpness. At this moment he wanted to turn around and run. In the legends of Brahman and Buddhism, the whirling divine tree and the Bodhi tree were side by side. They represented wisdom and power. Kasyapa Guru, kill him. Don't let him use this Dharma power. St. Paul's eyes were anxious. He suddenly sped up. He had already sensed the power of Zhang Tian's whirling divine tree body. The drooping green chi looked lovely, but it was extremely dangerous. It seemed that it could crush an immortal state warrior to death. St. Paul broke through 5 times the speed of sound. His body turned into a beam of sacred light and appeared above Zhang Tian in the blink of an eye. He swung the giant cross light blade at him. The holy light was extremely strong and sharp, extremely bright and dazzling. It was as if there was nothing left between heaven and earth. The only thing that was left was 100 feet long and extremely sharp arc of light. This attack could cut a medium-sized aircraft carrier in half. You are a wood elemental god art. You have plenty of life force, but you are too weak. You don't have enough attack power, so how can you block it? After the attack, St. Paul was extremely tired, but he was still full of confidence. A mocking smile appeared on his face. However, before his smile could fully bloom, it completely froze on his face and he could no longer smile. A green branch as thick as a thumb appeared. It was nothing compared to the whirling divine tree Dharma power. The branch swung out casually. Pop. With a crisp sound, the light sword's arc was shattered into pieces. What? St. Paul was hit by the sacred light. His body shook and he spat out blood. He suddenly screamed like an old dog that had been hit by a stick. He stepped on the sacred light and retreated quickly. His eyes were filled with fear. Zhang Tian's power was beyond his imagination. The whirling divine tree had trillions of branches, and any one of them could break through his full-powered attack and even severely injure his body. He must be a divine race from the extraterritorial space. He is even more powerful than the sacred race of light. He is not even afraid of the sacred light. If tens of thousands of branches pierce through at the same time, who can withstand it? The more St. Paul thought about it, the more frightened he became. The sacred light under his feet shot out like a rocket, leaving behind afterimages in the air as he fled toward St. Peter's Cathedral. St. Paul was defeated by Kong Techu? The rest of the spectators were all dumbfounded. Even Carlos IV was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Chapter 10:22. Kasyapa Guru is also running away. Another person cried out in alarm as if he had lost his parents. Kasyapa Guru had lived for more than 2,000 years. He was cunning, but he had lost his sharpness. When Zhang Tian used the whirling divine tree to destroy St. Paul's sacred sword, he had already started to run away. Kill! Yi Tianren, Situ Shao, the left and right guardians Huqing Tian, and many disciples like Tang Linglong attacked together. The situation took a turn for the worse. Originally, this battle was to be fought by 10,000 people to kill Zhang Tian, but they didn't expect that Zhang Tian would kill them instead. How dare you provoke my master? Huqing Tian was furious. He pierced through a sacred king with his spear and sent him flying. The sacred king vomited blood and begged for mercy. Today no one can run away. All of you must die. Situ Zhao's eyes were cold. He used the 5 elements heaven-seizing sword technique and killed his enemies. The 5 elements heaven-seizing sword technique came from the deity of 9 swords. It was an orthodox sword technique that he had mastered. At this moment, sword chi filled the sky and sword light shot up into the clouds. With a single slash, blood spurted out and an expert fell. Kong Techu, enough. At this moment, a majestic voice came from the tomb of the Holy See. Do you really want to destroy my orthodoxy and challenge the true God? There was anger in the voice. It was very old, but it was as shocking as a bell. But he didn't attack. Instead, it was a young man in a long white robe whose body emitted boundless holy light. He carried a cross on his back and he slowly rose from the Holy Church's holy tomb, and he faced Zhang Tian directly. You dare to step into the holy sea where the true God lives? Do you think I'm a fake god? 2 10-meter-long wings of holy light suddenly extended from his back. Each of them was dazzling and translucent, flowing with light and vibrant colors as if they were real. This young man was like a true god that had descended to the mortal world. He was surrounded by holy light, pure and flawless. He appeared extremely holy and vast. The holy light and power were many times stronger than St. Paul's. Even Kasayapa Guru paled in comparison. He bowed deeply with a wary look in his eyes, not daring to act rashly. He had reincarnated 10 times in the past, and although he had a secret technique, he would still lose his spirit and Brahman power to a certain extent. Unlike this person who was improving with each passing day, his saint arts and power becoming stronger and stronger. This is an archangel? Ying Laozu's expression became extremely solemn. He unleashed his sovereign qi and was on full alert, reminding Zhang Tian to be careful. Legend has it that in the Middle Ages or even earlier, there were angels in the West who walked the earth. Previously, everyone had thought that it was just a myth of the Holy See. Now that they had seen it for themselves, they knew that it was all true. Archangel. Yi Tianren Situ Shao and many disciples of the Tianqing sect exclaimed in surprise, their eyes alert. The wings behind the archangel seemed to be real. They were dazzling and bright as if they could tear the sky apart and sweep across the heavens. I am the son of a true God, Saint Ellen, the younger brother of the human ancestor Saint Adam. I am also known as the son of Saint, the Savior, the Messiah. I have half of the bloodline of the holy tribe of light. The angel-like powerhouse spoke as if he was reciting an ancient sonnet. His tone was full and his gaze was majestic. I, the current God, judge you. I will use endless light to burn your sins. I will purify your demonic heart. So he is the Messiah. Not the archangel. He is not dead. Ying Laozu's eyes widened as he exclaimed in surprise. His mouth was bitter. He is the Messiah. The founder of the Holy See. Yi Tianren and the other disciples of the Tianqing school also became unprecedentedly solemn. They were worried for Zhang Tian as if they were facing a great enemy. This was a descendant of a true god, not a mortal. He was born before the establishment of the Holy See in the 4th century BC. He had a lifespan of 2,400 years and was a supreme old monster. No matter how strong Zhang Tian was, could he resist him? Even if they were very confident in Zhang Tian, they still felt a little uneasy in the face of the descendant of a true god, a supreme old monster who had lived for more than 2,000 years. Kong Teichu, why aren't you kneeling and begging for mercy? This is the descendant of a true god, the Messiah. St. Paul shrank behind the Messiah as if he had found a backer. He became bold and arrogant as if he had been revived. The Messiah has been born. He has shown his divinity. In addition, many clergy and believers, led by the Pope St. Louis, knelt on the ground and prayed excitedly and devoutly. Oh my God, I actually saw the Messiah. I have received supreme blessings. The Messiah, your faithful believer, worship you. Many believers burst into tears and choked. They were so excited that their bodies twitched and they fainted. Greetings to the Master of the Holy See, the Messiah. Even the Kasayapa Guru and many powerhouses of the Brahmin had fear and reverence in their eyes. They bowed deeply to the Messiah to show their highest respect. As the founder of the Holy See, the Messiah was no longer a clergy member. He was the son of a true God, a God worshipped by 1.3 billion believers. What he used was no longer a saint technique but a miracle. In the teachings of the Holy See, the true God who was the combination of the Holy Father, the Holy Son, and the Holy Spirit was worshipped. As the Holy Son, the Messiah was also regarded as a true God. In other words, he was regarded as the spokesperson and avatar of the true God in the mortal world. At the last dinner, the glass of wine he had drunk, the cross with holy blood that flowed out when he was killed, and the spear of Longinus that was stained with holy blood were all regarded as holy objects. They had powerful magic power and could crush a foundation establishment powerhouse. When he founded the Holy See, he had shown many miracles. He could sweep through an area and shock the Egyptian pharaohs. This was not something that mortals could fight against. According to the records of the Holy See, the Messiah was resurrected after 3 days of suffering and ascended to heaven. But in fact he was only sleeping in the holy tomb and had been alive until now. Moreover, he had been absorbing the power of faith for thousands of years. His strength was already unimaginably powerful. Facing Messiah, Jiang Tian's expression was calm, and his eyes were filled with disdain. He said disdainfully, "The son of a true god? If I'm a true god, why don't I know that I have a son like you? You're not my son, you're a bastard. You're here to judge me on behalf of me. Are you out of your mind? Blasphemer. Bastard. Kill him, Messiah." St. Paul and the others were so angry that they almost went crazy. Kasyapa Guru also shook his head with a wry smile. He thought to himself, even the Messiah is here. Why are you still talking so arrogantly? This man was truly a demon-like existence. He was fearless, not even afraid of gods and Buddhas. It's useless for the angels and true gods to come out. You can't escape. Jiang Tian let out a chuckle as he watched Gaia and St. Paul flaunting their power. The power of the azure wood divine body was instantly unleashed. Many green branches danced in the air like tentacles and reached a few hundred meters in the blink of an eye, faster than 10 times the speed of sound. They reached toward the Messiah, Kasyapa Guru and St. Paul. Kong Techu, in the name of God, I burn your fallen soul. Repent and turn over a new leaf. The Messiah attacked with a cold face. She flapped her wings and beams of holy light shot out like arrows, sweeping across the sky. Suddenly the air became extremely hot. The sky cracked and the earth cracked. The temple collapsed and the entire Colosseum was shattered. The holy light surged like a tide, illuminating 10 miles of land. It was filled with a sacred aura. Countless believers knelt down and called out to the Messiah. They drew a cross in front of their chests and worshipped him devoutly. The power of faith was indeed terrifying. Some believers and clergymen still drew a cross and chanted the scriptures of the Holy See, even if they were burned to ashes by the holy light. Jiang Tian was swallowed up by the surging holy light, and disappeared from everyone's sight along with the swaying branches of the divine tree. The holy light was extremely hot like the sun in the sky. One of them was enough to kill an immortal state warrior. Such a scale could melt a cruiser into molten steel. Kong Techu must be dead. Many people guessed. It would be strange if he's not dead. A zealous believer of the Holy See shouted. Is that all? Messiah, you're not qualified to make me use my full strength. Let the true God with vertical pupils come out. Suddenly, following a low shout, Jiang Tian stepped out from the torrential holy light. With the whirling divine tree on his back, he was like a giant god from ancient times. Every step he took was an epic and every move he made was a creation. He approached the ashen-faced Messiah. Chapter 10:23. The whirling divine tree shook, and the boundless holy light was absorbed by the whirling divine tree like a whale swallowing a cow. The sun shone brightly in the sky and the sky was blue. What? He's not dead. The sacred light is gone. Everyone was shocked. St. Paul was so frightened that his body trembled and he almost fell from the sky. Countless people were dumbfounded. That was unbelievable. The boundless holy light was like an ocean, and it was absorbed by the tree behind Jiang Tian. Everyone even discovered that after the tree absorbed the holy light, it actually became even more translucent and resplendent. Its aura was vigorous, as if it could prop up a universe. What divine power is this? Is it the universe tree that created the universe? Messiah was also shocked. Deep inside the tomb, that so-called true God, the so-called ancestor of mankind, Saint Adam, was also shocked. His face revealed a deep solemnity. This tree was similar to the chaotic divine tree that created the universe. It was the root of creation and the mother of life. It could give birth to a world, but Jiang Tian used it as a Dharma golden body. It was unbelievable. Ah, you want to kill me with the sacred light? You're too weak. Is your sacred light strong? How is it compared to the true fire of the universe? How is it compared to the helium flash of the sun? Jiang Tian looked at him with disdain. Jiang Tian now had 3 divine bodies and purple lightning eyes, which were invulnerable to fire and water. He just let the sacred light burn him, but it only cut off one of his eyebrows and a few dry hairs. In his previous life, after Jiang Tian entered the divine realm, he could even bathe in the sun and swallow stars. What kind of light power hadn't he seen? Messiah's so-called sacred light was the sunlight collected from earth. It was very weak. Even though it had been condensed, it was still too weak compared to the true fire of the universe. Kong Techu, I don't believe I can't kill you. I'm Messiah, the true God's son. Messiah was both embarrassed and furious. She roared, and flames surrounded her sparkling wings as she waved them again. Immediately, the swords of holy light were 10 times more condensed than before. There were tens of thousands of them sweeping towards Xianxia. These light swords were capable of piercing through giant cities and sweeping through mountains. At this moment, they were like raging waves crashing against the shore as they rushed towards Xianxia. "You're too weak." Xianxia laughed, his eyes filled with contempt. Suddenly he stomped his foot and the whirling divine tree exploded. Countless branches and vines spread out thousands of meters in the air and twisted together, forming a millstone-like greenwood fist. It contained a vast amount of greenwood chi and directly punched out. Rumble. If Messiah's sword of holy light was like a surging river, then Xianxia's punch was like a meteor streaking across the sky. It was like a tsunami erupting, instantly shattering the sword of holy light. The sword of holy light shattered into pieces, turning into chaotic holy light that scattered in all directions. A huge wave of holy light surged into the sky and filled everyone's eyes like an ocean. It was so stimulating that tears flowed profusely and blood seeped out. Wherever the greenwood fist passed, the ground exploded. All the stone statues and buildings collapsed. The dimension seemed to be about to be annihilated. There were crisp cracking sounds as it twisted and deformed. Within a radius of a few kilometers, it was as if an earthquake had erupted. Tsunamis and raging waves swept out, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. Everything was filled with the aura of the whirling greenwood tree, causing people to be thrown off their feet. One expert after another was ground into meat paste and dust. How can his strange tree be so powerful? It actually destroyed the sword of holy light. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. He's really a supreme demon. Countless people wailed in their hearts. In Messiah's sacred blue eyes, the greenwood fist became bigger and bigger. I'm the true God's son. Cultivator, you can't kill me. He finally showed deep fear and roared. His wings surrounded his body like 2 shields, releasing thousands of rays of light, trying to block Xianxia's punch from the whirling divine tree. Clang. The sound of a bullet crashing into a giant mountain and endless violent energy exploded from the intersection of the giant fist and the wings. Below, with the Colosseum as the center, the area within a few kilometers was blasted into rubble. A huge deep pit appeared with black smoke billowing out. Even the granite was melted into magma. Swoosh. Messiah spurted out blood and flew more than 1,000 meters away, embedding himself in the steps of St. Peter's Basilica. His fiery wings were shattered and countless bones in his chest were shattered. A deep fist mark was caved in. His robe exploded, revealing his skin and flesh. His hair was disheveled and his face was dirty. He was in so much pain that he kept vomiting blood. At this moment his clothes were ragged, his hair was disheveled, and his face was covered in dust and blood. He was simply in a sorry state, like a beggar on the street. Where was the holy light, pure and flawless aura that suppressed the world and looked down upon the common people from above? The tens of thousands of people present in the huge city of Rome and the Vatican were stunned. They were dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. "Ah, I'm vomiting blood." Jiang Tianzong let out a long laugh, his eyes filled with disdain. "Aren't you Messiah? Aren't you the Son of God? So you can vomit blood. So you're also made of flesh and blood. We're all humans. Why are you pretending to be a wolf? The demon is too powerful. He must be the legendary extraterrestrial demon to be able to defeat Messiah." Messiah didn't fail. How could he fail? He's my faith, the Son of God. Yes, Messiah is omniscient and omnipotent. He can't be defeated, he can't be defeated. All of this is an illusion created by the demon of Middle-earth with evil spells to destroy our faith. After an unknown period of time, some devout believers cried as if the world had been destroyed. They were heartbroken and numb, unwilling to accept the cruel reality. Kill the demon. Kill the demon Kong Techu even if we have to die. There were also fanatical believers who charged at Jiang Tian without caring about their lives. However, there weren't many of them, only a few hundred. Bang! Jiang Tian stomped down like a mountain. The world instantly darkened and shrouded the ground below. These people all exploded and turned into balls of minced meat. They were trampled into a deep pit and became ghosts. Messiah is no match for him? This Eastern demon is so powerful. Some believers exclaimed as their faith collapsed. Their faces turned pale and they wailed miserably. What was Messiah? The Savior. The victim. The founder of the Holy See. The preacher of the true God, the Son of God, the clone of the true God and the spokesperson. In the eyes of the believers he was omnipotent, omniscient and omnipotent. However, he was beaten like a dog by Zhang Tian at this moment. This was too much to bear. Kong Taichu can defeat Messiah. Could it be that Zhang Taichu is the true God? Some shallow believers were also shaken at this moment. According to the scripture of the Holy See, Taichu gave birth to Dao. Dao and God exist together. Dao is God. An old missionary with extraordinary knowledge vaguely knew the origin of the true God. His faith was shaken. They lowered their heads and murmured with flickering eyes. Doesn't this mean that Taichu is the father of the Holy See's true God? Kong Taichu, you can't kill me. People of God, let's bathe in blood together and kill this eastern demon. Slay this evil dragon. Messiah stood up and charged at Zhang Tian again. At the same time he roared loudly and chanted scriptures to bewitch the believers. At the same time Kasayapa Guru, St. Paul, St. Louis and the other powerhouses, including the reclusive royalty who hadn't died, rose into the air like crazy and attacked Zhang Tian from all directions. Messiah's ability to bewitch people was extraordinary. She controlled the hearts and souls of many believers. All the members of the church who could fight took action. They did not care about their lives and were like mad dogs. People continuously surged into the battlefield. Some ordinary believers who didn't know martial arts even picked up machine guns and sniper rifles to shoot at Zhang Tian. You want to win with numbers again? Shameless. Ying Laozu's face froze and wanted to help. Yes. You should have done this long ago. Tack together. However, Zhang Tian was still relaxed. He laughed and the swaying branches of the divine tree burst out and pierced through the void. Suddenly, blood surged like a tide and lives were harvested like straw. This was a bloody scene. It was shocking. Tens of thousands of branches burst out. Some of them cut the Brahmin and Western overlords into pieces. Some pierced through their chests and a dozen people together. In an instant the enemies died one after another. Cries of agony rose to the sky. It was a tragic scene. The northern city of Rome suddenly became a hell on earth. Bodies were piled up like mountains and blood flowed like rivers. Zhang Tian only used one divine body dharma form to kill all the enemies in despair. Kill again. Zhang Tian was satisfied. He pushed toward the Vatican and patted the sky-devouring demon gourd on his waist. Clang, 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 clang. The 9 big flying swords and tens of thousands of small flying swords suddenly burst out. They were dazzling like dragons and the rain of swords was like a tide. They didn't care about the others and ruthlessly attacked Messiah. Xianxia Azure Dragon Divine Body Kill. Boom. Zhang Tian's right foot stepped on the air and the void shook. The Xianxia Azure Dragon also burst out. Chapter 1024. The mystic water was so heavy that it could crush an immortal state warrior to death. It was as black as ink and rolled in all directions. In the rolling mystic water, an azure dragon that was more than 100 feet long rose into the air like a green train. This dragon was majestic. Its scales exploded and it bared its fangs and claws. It opened its bloody mouth and swallowed people alive and spat out mystic water. In the blink of an eye, members of the royal family died under its sharp claws, falling from the sky like rain. Plop, plop. The ground was filled with corpses piling up into hills. There were more and more corpses, almost filling up the bestial battle arena, the streets and the imperial senate, forming a sea of corpses and blood. In the blink of an eye, thousands of people died. Gung metal divine body, kill again. Zhang Tian was overjoyed. He let out a long laugh and shouted loudly. Another gung metal divine general fell to the ground. He was more than 100 feet tall, and his face vaguely resembled Zhang Tian. His eyes were like glass, his nails were like green jade, and his golden armor, golden saber and golden boots were shining brightly. His entire body seemed to be cast in gold. He was like an ancient god of war who had come across time and was insufferably arrogant. Creak, creak, boom, boom. Dragging a wild-looking broadsword of Gingjin in one hand, he strode forward. Every step he took shook the earth. Like a human-shaped bulldozer, he pushed toward the Vatican and St. Peter's Basilica. Clang. He was unstoppable. With a swing of his fist he crushed a church with one punch. With a stomp, hundreds of people died. With a slash of his saber, he annihilated the void. The Holy See and Brahmin clergy and believers suffered terrible casualties. Broken bones and broken tendons, dying without a complete corpse, were the lucky ones. Most of them were directly turned into blood and flesh under the gung metal divine general's push or turned into ashes and disappeared. Powerful, too powerful. Kong Techu is so strong that he can completely crush a demon god. No wonder he can suppress the stellar sky domain. Yingling Laozu was shocked. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Countless people sucked in a breath of cold air, dumbfounded. He felt that what he saw today was like a legend. He single-handedly suppressed Messiah and fought against 2 orthodoxies and 8 sovereign families. Even if you give me another 10,000 years, I still won't be able to catch up to him. At this moment in the crowd, Ying Su's heart was trembling. His eyes were filled with fear and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Facing Jiang Tian's monstrous might, he was completely convinced at this moment. The other members of Wuxia's royal family were scared out of their wits. How fortunate! Fortunately, he came to his senses in time and didn't confront Jiang Tian. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died. At first, Jiang Tian had gone west alone and fought against 2 major orthodoxies and many European royal families. Many people didn't believe that Jiang Tian could win. Only now did he realize how terrifying and powerful Jiang Tian's strength was. There was only one person, but he was slaughtering an army of 10,000. This was simply like a tiger that had entered a flock of sheep, and it was a one-sided slaughter. Killing people like cutting grass without making a sound. No wonder he dared to kill the Jin family and ignore the reclusive royalty. Who could fight against Kong Techu like this? Messiah can't hold on any longer. Suddenly Tang Linglong laughed. Everyone looked up. Jiang Tian was walking in the air with his hands behind his back, approaching the Vatican. His eyes were cold and his face was expressionless. He was like an immortal who had descended to the mortal world. He commanded the whirling divine tree, divine general Gengjin, and the Xianxia azure dragon to kill tens of thousands of soldiers. However, the flying swords were focused on Messiah alone. Sword of the Archangel. Forbidden art of hell. Left hand of God, great art of destruction. Messiah was covered in blood and roared angrily. From time to time he would let out a blood-curdling scream and use his Dharma treasures as if they were free, trying to block Jiang Tian's flying swords. But he was no match for them. He was drowned by the flying swords. Blood spurted out and his holy light was annihilated. He was killed by the flying swords again and again, falling into the dust and struggling to hold on. True God, why don't you save me? I can't hold on any longer. Messiah fell to the ground again. Seeing thousands of flying swords attacking together, he cried out in shock and turned into a beam of holy light, disappearing from the spot. The flying swords paused for a moment, then pierced the granite ground and exploded. Like iron dragons roaring, they spun and drilled into the ground. It was Messiah who had quickly escaped from the ground to St. Peter's Basilica. Bang! St. Peter's Basilica 5 kilometers away suddenly split into pieces. Countless sword flashes shot out in all directions. The spinning flying swords broke out of the ground like a metal dragon and chased after Messiah's figure into the sky. Kong Techu, I submit. Don't kill me, you're the true God. I'm willing to serve you. Messiah's entire body was stained with blood, and his flesh was lacerated. His face was filled with despair and pain. He suddenly knelt down in the sky and worshipped, wagging his tail and begging for mercy. At this moment, Messiah realized in despair that the so-called true God was also afraid of Kong Techu. The powerhouse of the Holy Clan of Light had actually activated the teleportation formation and wanted to escape to heaven. He did not dare to fight Jiang Tian head-on. Messiah was only the messenger of the true God, a preacher. How could he be a match for Jiang Tian? He could only submit. The flying swords paused around Messiah, ready to attack. In front of Messiah, Jiang Tian's tall and dignified figure looked exceptionally tall, as if a true god had descended. The founder of the Holy See, the spokesperson of the gods, Messiah, actually knelt down and submitted. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. They could not believe it, as if they were facing a legend. I still have some use for you, but there's no need for the others. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold. He put away his flying swords, but he did not withdraw his other divine abilities. He continued to kill in all directions. Messiah submitted. The true God Adam did not come out. Is he also afraid? I can't hold on any longer. Run. 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 Kasyapa Guru was so scared that his soul almost left his body. Cold sweat covered his bald head. He thought to himself that after escaping he must find a suitable body to possess and be reborn, lest Kong Techu find him. He flew close to the ground and his figure flashed. In the blink of an eye he had flown 5 or 6 kilometers away. However, the swaying green tree was too fast. A green branch swept across the sky and whipped him away. The other 5 or 6 branches caught him and wrapped around him as if they were telepathic. They tightened together. Great golden bell shield. 24 heavens divine ability. Blood shadow snake escape. Kasyapa Guru roared with a pained expression. He used more than 10 divine abilities at the same time and his body changed rapidly. However, it was useless. His waist and chest were like hemp poles. His body was twisted out of shape and blood dripped down. Finally, with a muffled bang, Kasyapa Guru's body was also shattered. Blood splattered everywhere and he exploded with a loud bang. In the ear-piercing sound, Zhang Tian pointed his finger. Thousands of swaying branches of the divine tree erupted and condensed into fists, spears and swords. Instantly, the Pegasi and the members of the royal family were entangled and strangled to death. Some were even pierced through. Flying. Zhang Tian's 9 main flying swords danced in the air, piercing through the golden flying ships and killing the powerhouses of the Holy See. The Pope, St. Louis, was just about to kneel and beg for mercy when Zhang Tian pointed his finger with a cold gaze. His body suddenly exploded into a rain of crystal-clear flesh, and he died an unnatural death. A shadow of a divine soul appeared in a remote alley in the south of Rome like a ghost. It vaguely looked like Kasyapa Guru. Kong Teju, you bastard. You destroyed my body. I'll cut you into pieces and skin you alive. This divine soul was formed by a sheet of golden light, and it was an extremely old man. It was the divine soul of Jia Yi. He was gnashing his teeth with hatred and was about to run away. Suddenly, a black gelatinous demon the size of a millstone condensed in the air and laughed strangely. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance. He opened his bloody mouth and sucked. While Jia Yi's soul was screaming and begging, he held it in his mouth and started chewing it with relish. No. True God, save me. Outside of St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican City, St. Paul, who was covered in blood and severely injured by the swaying divine tree, screamed in despair and was defeated. He was on the verge of death, but Zhang Tian didn't stop attacking. He roared and clenched his fists. A black bloody spear suddenly appeared in his hands. The spear of Longinus. It was this spear that killed the Messiah when he was tied to the cross and stained with the divine blood. This was the real God-killing spear. Even after more than 1,700 years, the blood on the God-killing spear was still red and exuded a powerful aura. The God-killing spear used by Hu Qingtian was a replica of the God-killing spear, but it was already at the level of a quasi-spiritual artifact. At this moment, St. Paul sensed the extreme danger. He was like a mad tiger, waving the spear and stabbing at the branches without holding back. Every time the spear was stabbed, there was a burst of lightning, divine blood and holy light. It was enough to shake heaven and earth and easily penetrate a cruiser. But it was useless against the branches of the swaying divine tree. Chapter 1025. After all, not even Messiah was able to defeat Zhang Tian. How could a God-killing spear stained with sacred blood stand a chance against the whirling divine tree? Clang, clang. The seemingly crisp and weak branches wrapped around the spear of Longinus, but the sound of metal clashing could be heard. The branches tightened and the God-killing spear crumbled like a piece of tofu. Then a few more branches pierced through St. Paul's body and pulled him in all directions. A shower of flesh rained down and St. Paul exploded. The last sacred lord of the Holy See, the third pope and overlord of the same generation as Messiah, was dead. St. Paul is dead. He killed Jaya in both body and soul. This is terrifying. Master Kong, please spare our lives. We are sorry. We will never challenge Master Kong again. Please let us go. We are just ants, insignificant. When they saw Zhang Tian kill St. Paul and return with Jaya's divine soul, everyone was stunned. Everyone present was dumbstruck. They were terrified to the point their legs went soft and their souls left their bodies. They all knelt down on the ground and kowtowed while begging for mercy. By then there were only 2,000 people left in the army. They were all half-step immortal state and transcendent state cultivators. How could they withstand Zhang Tian's ferocious attack? Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. Zhang Tian chuckled lazily. His body flickered and he dashed toward St. Peter's Basilica. Behind Zhang Tian came a series of earth-shattering screams, explosions, begging for mercy and screams. It was Zhang Tian's divine bodies, led by the overlords of the Tianqing school, the Wuxia Long formation and the reclusive royalty. By then Zhang Tian had already seen them. Above the Holy Sepulchre behind St. Peter's Basilica, the god with vertical pupils known as Saint Adam stood in midair in front of a floating door filled with holy light. He looked anxious as he chanted an incantation, constantly praying and muttering. Previously in the Lansong River area, the first bishop in council, Saint Laurent, had invited his spirit into his body. Now he had finally revealed his true form. This true god was abnormally tall and his body was as transparent as glass. He had 2 wings of light that were sparkling and translucent. There was a dazzling demonic vertical pupil in the middle of his forehead, and his entire body was shining with blazing holy light. He didn't look like a creature from this world. In the universe there were many forms of teleportation arrays. For example, the human race liked to use altar-like immortal platforms to teleport to the mirror image immortal platforms. There were also the Zergs who could form wormholes and achieve interstellar transmission. There were also some saint races and demon races that preferred to use teleportation gates. For instance, the many teleportation arrays of the great demon race were called the Gate of Heaven Influence, and they required a blood sacrifice. Zhang Tian immediately came to a realization upon seeing this. This powerhouse of the holy race with vertical pupils was most likely trying to escape to the heavenly kingdom through the teleportation gate. This is the Holy Sea's final trump card. A pure-blooded holy race of the Holy See can perform holy spells. The Holy See is pretending to be a true god to confuse believers. Therefore Zhang Tian laughed and immediately charged over like a flash of light. Kong Techu, are you done yet? Are you really going to stop me from leaving? That so-called true divinity Adam also sensed that Zhang Tian was getting closer. Zhang Tian didn't bother to pay attention to him. He was getting closer and closer, and he was already above St. Peter's Cathedral. True thunder of light explode. Saint Adam roared angrily and waved his hand. The holy thunder of light that had been set up in the cathedral exploded. Immediately, giant thunderbolts rose to the sky like giant pythons and slithered like snakes, filling the entire sky and enveloping Zhang Tian. In an instant, the entire St. Peter's Cathedral exploded. The buildings collapsed, smoke billowed and fire burned the sky. Its power was comparable to a nuclear weapon. This true thunder of light has a longer history than St. Peter's Cathedral. It took 3,000 years of history of the holy race to create it with the true fire of the sun and the divine thunder of the 9 heavens. Even if you're made of iron, you'll still die. Saint Adam sneered. I'm much tougher than iron. A cold sneer was heard. Zhang Tian's body seemed to be made of gold. He was bathed in the holy thunder of light as he walked into the tomb unhurriedly. He's still alive. True God Adam was shocked as if he had seen an evil spirit. He's too powerful. Oh, I have to run. The true thunder of light could kill overlords at the golden core level and was as powerful as a nuclear weapon or a Kuelian, but it couldn't attack from a distance. However, it couldn't kill Zhang Tian. He was sure that no matter how powerful Zhang Tian was, he was at least more powerful than the golden core level. He was definitely not someone he could deal with. I have to go to the heavenly state and ask the overlords of my people to come and cut Kong Techu into pieces. Without saying a word, he threw out a few Dharma artifacts. A giant net of sacred light and thunderbolts enveloped Zhang Tian. At the same time, his eyes flashed and many cross-light swords shot towards Zhang Tian. He flapped his wings and was about to step into the portal like a bolt of lightning. You want to run? You're too slow. Zhang Tian's figure flickered and the whirling divine tree erupted. Thousands of branches whizzed out, breaking the giant net, crushing the cross-shaped lightsaber, and firmly grabbing Saint Adam in the tentacle-like branches. Kong Techu, let go of me. No matter how hard he struggled and released sacred light, he couldn't break free at all. The sacred light was quickly swallowed by the swaying divine tree. Is this the true God? He was caught by Kong Techu. Oh my God. This is unbelievable. At this time many people were dumbfounded by this scene. The faith of the Holy See completely collapsed. The whole world was turned upside down and they cried as if they had lost their parents. Kang Techu, how dare you kill me? I'm a member of the Holy See of Light, the messenger of light in this world. If you don't let me go, sooner or later the Holy See of Light will set foot on earth and cut you into pieces. Saint Adam roared loudly, threatening recklessly. He thought that Zhang Tian wouldn't dare to provoke the heavenly state. After all, it was a supreme being in the eyes of the world. He thought that Zhang Tian wouldn't dare to kill him. As the messenger of light of the Holy See of Light in this world, he had displayed sacred arts as miracles to confuse believers. Back then even the Pharaoh of Egypt was cruelly crushed by him. Without him there wouldn't be the Holy See and there wouldn't be more than 1 billion believers. Humph, I wanted to give you a chance to live, but now, you dare to threaten me? Go to hell. Zhang Tian laughed. Crack. With a sound, the branches of the chaotic divine tree turned into hacksaws and fine threads and tightened together. Crack. Crack. With the sound of metal being cut, Saint Adam was torn into pieces. His head was split into 8 pieces. The crystal-clear broken limbs spewed out sacred light flames and billowed smoke. They emitted a bright light and fell to the ground. He killed the true God. Oh my God! The true God is dead. How can this be? This is the true God. Isn't he omnipotent? Didn't he create the universe and the human world? In the city of Rome, countless believers witnessed this scene. Their faith collapsed. Their eyes were filled with despair and shock. Their faces were pale and they wailed as if their father had died. The scene was too shocking. The legendary true God, the creator and the ancestor of mankind, Saint Adam, was torn apart by Zhang Tian's whirling divine tree. How can an omnipotent God die? This was their faith, their spiritual pillar. At this moment, those believers were in so much pain that they wished they were dead. It was as if the world was going to be destroyed. The true God is dead. This world is going to be destroyed too. The true God was killed by the demons of Middle Earth. What happened to this world? It's too despairing. The God Slayer is unforgivable. Why didn't he die? In the city of Rome, many fanatical and devout believers were heartbroken. They couldn't accept it. Some were crying and some were cursing. Some even slit their throats with a knife. Blood splattered and their corpses fell. They had chosen to commit suicide. Saint Adam's soul began to collapse, but he wasn't dead yet. His vertical pupils were still open and could even move, but they were filled with resentment as he stared at Zhang Tian. But he saw. Zhang Tian transformed into the appearance of the Gengjin divine body again. His whole body seemed to be cast in gold. He stepped into the portal with one step. With his back to everyone, he stood there motionlessly like a giant god. What is he going to do? Enter heaven alone? Saint Adam's soul couldn't believe it. It was impossible. It was impossible to enter this portal without the cultivation of a golden core cultivator and the protection technique of the Holy Clan of Light. Otherwise he would only be killed by the violent holy light, raging fire and energy. Unfortunately, he was disappointed to see. Zhang Tian didn't die. Instead, he calmly walked into the depths of the portal step by step. Then his divine soul exploded. Everything returned to silence and nothingness. Chapter 1026. Master. Sect Leader. Master Kong. Yi Tianren led the Tianqing school, Yingying Laozu led the reclusive royalty, and Yi Zhantian led the powerhouses of the Huaxiaolong formation. They rushed over, but they only saw Zhang Tian's lonely back. At this time Zhang Tian seemed to be under great pressure. He staggered and walked toward the depths of the space. Protect the Tianqing school and protect Huaxia. Wait for me to come back. Sensing the arrival of everyone, he stopped for a moment, but looked back at them with a smile on his face. There seemed to be flames dancing in his eyes. He seemed to be Prometheus who stole the heavenly fire for the world. The heavenly fire danced in his eyes, almost like a martyr's fanaticism. He's going to conquer the world of heaven alone? At this time Messiah was stunned and could not believe it. Only Messiah, the preacher of the true God, knew that it was the legendary place where the true God lived. Only then did she know how powerful and terrifying the life there was. Countless powerhouses beyond human imagination were hidden there. Master, come back. Tang Linglong reached out and wanted to rush in and pull Zhang Tian back. But as soon as her fingers touched the portal, she was suddenly shocked by a violent energy and flew out. He's going there for the recovery of spirit qi on Earth and to build Earth into a cultivation planet. Huang Linger held Tang Linglong's hand and healed her with her own power. Tears streamed down her face. Going to heaven alone? That's what a real man should do. Ingsu's eyes were full of reverence and fanaticism. Although he could not do it, he yearned for it. Zhou Xian was ashamed of his inferiority. Thinking of his contempt for Jiang Tian before, he was even more ashamed and wanted to find a hole to hide in. He single-handedly destroyed the Holy See and Brahmin orthodoxies, the 8 reclusive royalty in Europe, suppressed Messiah and killed the true god Adam. With Jiang Tian's achievements and the strength he had displayed, he didn't even dare to compare. He would never be able to catch up in this lifetime. You can all go back now. Jiang Tian smiled and glanced at everyone. Then he turned and left. He walked through the spatial tunnel by himself. The spatial gate began to flicker unsteadily. Rays of holy light burst out, sparks flew in all directions and space was distorted. Like a wormhole that connected space, a huge floating force formed in the surroundings. Many stones and dilapidated walls floated up. Jiang Tian, I'll go with you. At this critical juncture, Huang Linger's teary eyes suddenly flashed with determination. She clenched her fists, took a deep breath and stepped into the portal. Everyone was still in a daze, not even Jiang Tian. Immediately after, there was a loud explosion. Everyone saw that the entire spatial portal, together with Jiang Tian and Huang Linger, turned into a bright golden flame. Like a missile launch, it swept across the earth like a comet, shooting into the depths of the starry sky and disappearing from everyone's sight. The entire city of Rome, the entire Vatican City, was silent. Only countless corpses were left lying on the ground, and a faint smell of blood drifted in the air. Everyone was silent for a while. They had mixed feelings. She's so brave. Tang Linglong had mixed feelings in her heart. She regretted that she was timid at the last moment and didn't dare to go with them. Suddenly, Ying Laozu's majestic eyes swept across the reclusive royalty and said coldly, "From today onwards, the reclusive royalty of Wuxia will be respected by Kong Teichu. Whoever dares to disturb Kong Teichu's Tianqing school will be the enemy of my reclusive royalty. Under the leadership of Grandmaster Jiang, we should take the responsibility of protecting Wuxia as our duty. We will not hesitate to sacrifice our lives." Many members of the royal family heard this and nodded solemnly. As for Messiah, her body trembled like a sieve. She kowtowed deeply in the direction where Jiang Tian disappeared to show her allegiance to Jiang Tian. A few hours later, a shocking piece of news spread across the world. The whole world was uneasy and terrified. When Jiang Tian went west and rushed to the Vatican, all the major countries, organizations and overlords in the world paid close attention. Many intelligence agencies rushed to the scene. Many leaders of the major countries were worried. The dark web forums were boiling with emotions. Tianqing School, the Holy See and the Brahmin were the 3 top orthodoxies in the world. The competition between them would have far-reaching consequences. This battle would determine the world's top orthodoxy. No one could ignore such a battle. Kong Teichu is heading to the Holy See. Will he win or lose? Many people were discussing it excitedly. There's no doubt that Kong Teichu will fail this time. Some people were very resolute and certain. The Holy See and the Brahmin are orthodoxies that have been around for 2,000 years. Not only do they have holy sages and celestial immortals, but they also have true gods who have awakened from their slumber. Who can challenge them? The demon hunter Pulsatilla rushed to the scene. He set up a mobile phone camera on a building in New Rome and used the My Show live streaming software to broadcast the battle to the world. At this time it was already 2012. 4G technology was widely used. Smartphones and live streaming were in the ascendant. Oh my God, Europe's reclusive royalty is really helping. They are so powerful. 10,000 overlords, that's terrifying. The last holy sage of the Holy See, St. Paul, is really alive. He's really an old monster. Saint Adam, Messiah. He's the descendant of a true god. The blood of a true god flows in his body. At the beginning, the Holy See, the Brahmin and the reclusive royalty had shown extraordinary strength and shocked everyone. At this time, many people were even more convinced that Kong Teichu was simply digging his own grave. But when the battle broke out, everyone's eyes popped out. Jiang Tian was a super-killing god. Saints, holy kings and holy sages were as fragile as paper and couldn't withstand a single blow. Zhang Tian was like a single person encircling and annihilating tens of thousands of powerful cultivators. From the beginning to the end, he wasn't any weaker than the others. Whenever he encountered a strong opponent, he would become even stronger. When Zhang Tian used the whirling divine tree to kill Saint Venerables, true deities and Brahmin Lord Jia, even more people were shocked. They were so shocked that their souls almost left their bodies. Fortunately, we didn't stand on the opposite side of Kong Teichu. Some people murmured to themselves while trembling. Even more people were so shocked that they couldn't speak. Jiang Tianyi had crushed the Colosseum of ancient Rome with a raise of his hands and feet. He was like an ancient giant god that killed people in the blink of an eye, shaking the sky and the earth. He had destroyed a giant city like destroying a sand sculpture. Everyone felt fear and reverence as if they had seen a real god. Kong Teichu is really invincible on this blue planet. He's the god slayer. Many people murmured to themselves. Even the last holy sage of the Holy See 1,000 years ago and the lord of the Brahmin, Kasyapa Guru, who had reincarnated 10 times, was no match for him. Even the true god Saint Adam was torn to pieces. He killed holy sages and holy kings like cutting grass without a sound. Who in this world could shake Kong Teichu? At this moment, Jiang Tian's name of the god slayer spread throughout the world of overlords. Everyone was shocked. In the end, they found that Kong Teichu disappeared into the sky as if he was going to kill his way to another world. What's that? It seems to be connected to another world. What is Kong Teichu going to do? Someone watched in horror as Jiang Tian walked into the portal. That's the ancient portal of the Holy See, said to be connected to the heavenly realm, which is the legendary heaven. The demon hunter Pulsatilla exclaimed. What? He's going to challenge the heavenly realm? Many people were shocked as if they were listening to a myth. Countless people looked at each other. The heavenly realm was said to have true gods, angels, and divine knights. It had experienced the Dark Age and was very different from this world. It was very mysterious and magical. Of course, to the challengers, it was also very powerful and terrifying. Kong Teichu had destroyed their orthodoxy on earth. With the gods' vengeful nature, they could easily cause astronomical disasters and destroy the character of a civilization. How could they let him go? Kong Teichu, this is starting a war between two worlds. It's like starting a war with aliens. It's far from being comparable to the destruction of the Holy See and Brahmin orthodoxies. At this time, even Hera of the Pantheon turned pale and trembled. God Slayer. Can Kong Teichu really slay a god this time? What kind of terrifying existence is there in the heavenly realm? Even the leaders of the major countries were burning with anxiety. They gathered military and scientific personnel and held an emergency meeting to discuss the upcoming changes and countermeasures. After all, such a thing had never happened in human history. Such a big event could be said to be earth-shattering, shaking the entire world. It was closely related to the fate of the entire human race. No one could ignore it. Chapter 1027. At the same time, in the heavenly realm at the edge of the solar system, the land was vast and boundless, and the tall mountains rose and fell like giant dragons. Between the mountains, holy light circled, and in the sky, angels soared, singing ethereal hymns. There were exotic flowers and herbs everywhere, and the fragrance of orchids wafted in the air. Pure-blooded unicorns roamed the jungle. This was a pure piece of ancient debris. It was hidden in a dimensional world with supreme saint spells by the predecessors. It was smaller than the heavenly stars, but it was still thousands of miles wide. The aura of this place was very peaceful. There were even elves, giants, and ancient mammoths, flying dragons, winged dragons, griffins, stegosaurs, and rocks that had long since gone extinct on Earth. The aura of primordial savagery was extremely dense as it assaulted his senses. Here the holy light shone brightly. In the sky there was a sun that was completely different from the one on Earth. It was filled with brilliant and pure light, and it was several times purer and more dazzling than the sun on Earth. In the center of the vast continent, there were 10 huge mountains, all about 10,000 meters tall, and the mountain range was very strange. It was like circles gradually rising, and the closer it was to the center, the higher it got. At first glance, it looked like a huge pagoda. The highest point compared to the ground was already 100,000 meters tall, and it could almost touch the sky. On top of every mountain, there were many huge cities that were built with glass like jade and heavy gold, emitting a brilliant light. No matter if it was the foundation, the dome, or the pillars, they all came from the primordial era. They were 10,000 years old and emitted the aura of the vicissitudes of time. Among the 10 holy mountains, the core and also the highest peak was as straight as a sword with an imposing aura looking down on the world and had a sacred aura that transcended the mortal world. This place was called Mount Saint Ancestor. There was an endless temple floating in the air, and it was even brighter, spewing out holy light, and its aura was oppressive, glorious, and magnificent. This was the sacred Hall of Light. No matter how time passed and history changed, this place was eternal, unshakable, mysterious, and powerful. Below the sacred Hall of Light was a huge square with an area of 10 kilometers. Around it there were statues of the God of Light, each of which was hundreds of meters tall, holding a cross-light sword with both hands, overlooking the mountains and the earth. In the middle of the square, there was a giant cross that was thousands of meters tall. At this moment, surrounded by several information officers, a slender woman in silver armor was standing on the head of a huge unicorn that was more than 10 meters long. She was looking at the information of various faiths on the cross. Her chest was high and her waist was slender. Her eyes were blue and her face was flawless. She looked like she was only 16 years old. However, the vicissitudes of life in her eyes showed that she might be several hundred years old. Number of fanatic believers: 101342, 90483, 80401. The number of devout believers is rapidly decreasing. The number of shallow believers is close to zero. The Messiah has become a heretic. Saint Adam, the emissary of light, has fallen. The power of faith has plummeted. Warning: possible annihilation by a calamity-grade super. Alert: the gate of heaven has been invaded. It is suspected that someone not from the holy clan of light has entered. Bloodline analysis: gold elemental physique, wood elemental physique, abnormal water elemental physique. Unable to analyze all of them. Looking at the information officer of the Holy Church, St. Jean's face was extremely solemn as if she had seen a demon invasion. Cold sweat slowly dripped from her forehead. Believing in the true God of the Holy See, the soul ascending to heaven after death was not a legend. In fact, St. Jean had come to heaven from earth. Before that, she was a fanatic believer of the Holy See, a Frenchwoman. 600 years ago, she participated in the war between the United Kingdom and France and was captured and killed. Later, she was conferred the title of Saintess in the Holy See in Vatican City, and her soul was received and ascended to heaven. She was then condensed into a body by the vast divine power and became the information officer of heaven, monitoring the mortal world and serving the Holy Church of Heaven for the rest of her life. The Holy Clan of Light in heaven relied on consuming the power of faith to condense into divine power and form supreme power. Divine power was a vast and mighty power. It could be used to build a physical body, to repair broken space, to create angels, to open the door to heaven and to bless believers. It was said that if there was enough divine power, it could even create a world. And believers could be said to be the source and foundation of the power of faith. The disappearance of the believers was tantamount to announcing that the energy that operated the kingdom of heaven had completely collapsed and disappeared. In the future, not only would everyone's divine power disappear, even the space crystal wall of this dimensional world would collapse. This is terrible. St. Jean's hair stood on end and a chill ran down her spine. Even her round and slender legs were trembling slightly. Even in the Dark Age when the gods fell, even when the struggle between the religious power and the imperial power was fierce, even in the 1960s when the United States put pressure on the Holy See, the number of believers had never dropped so dramatically like today. Even the Messiah has betrayed us. Yeah. This is terrible. Our orthodoxy in the mortal world is almost completely destroyed. Could it be that the demon god has invaded Earth? Many other information officers were also horrified, and their hands trembled slightly as if they were facing a great enemy. An information officer said with a trembling voice, "I heard from the powerhouses of the Angel Division that the Holy See Pope prayed a day ago, and there were even a large number of fanatical believers praying. There were hundreds of thousands of people and many archangels and holy knights sensed it. Praying was when a believer prayed to the gods and asked for help. The gods could choose to help him or ignore him. But generally speaking, the high and mighty gods rarely helped a single believer's prayer unless they were on a whim. Of course, if the Pope or hundreds of thousands of believers prayed together, the gods would not ignore them. Because only when the gods responded and showed miracles, They could gain more believers and receive more power of faith. What are they praying for? Is there really a demon god? Has the angel division arrived? Another information officer asked. Yes, they said that a demon god called Kong Techu appeared in the east of Earth. The previous information officer said, it is said that there were 7 or 8 archangels' consciousnesses, but they were all killed by Kong Techu. Kong Techu even killed Saint Adam, the messenger of the gods. A demon appeared in Middle Earth? Kong Techu? This is an earth-shattering event. I have to go to the Saint Palace immediately and report this to the Saint King. Continue to monitor. Saint Joan of Arc urged the unicorn, and holy light spurted out from its feet. The unicorn soared into the sky and hurried away. Is the Saint King going to be alarmed? The other information officers looked at each other and knew that a great storm was about to break out. Saint Adam, the messenger, and many of his descendants died on earth. Messiah betrayed us. Kong Techu, the demon god, is attacking. An hour later, this news swept across the entire heavenly kingdom, and the entire dimension world was shaken. Boom, boom. In the space channel between heavenly kingdom and earth, a ball of mystical light twisted and turned indeterminately. Sometimes, it would turn into flowing black water, sometimes it would turn into winding branches, sometimes it would turn into golden light, and sometimes it would turn into a bolt of lightning that tightly wrapped around Huang Linger. It shuttled back and forth at high speed, struggling to move forward. The space-time channel of the Holy Race of Light is built according to the characteristics of the Holy Race of Light, and it can only pass through the souls of the Holy Race of Light or pure believers. For me, it's like purgatory. Zhang Tian changed shape and flew in the space channel while gritting his teeth and thinking. Fortunately, I have already cultivated 3 divine bodies and the purple lightning eye technique, especially the immortal golden body, which can appear in the form of particles. If it were immortal, they would have been turned into ashes. Of course, this is also because Heavenly Kingdom is relatively close to Earth and the space crystal wall is weak. If it were a world of its own, it would be impossible to pass through it without reaching the soul formation stage. At this time, Zhang Tian was very uncomfortable. Beams of bright holy light shot over like arrows, like steel needles, sharp arrows, and divine weapons, pure and flawless, but with a temperature of tens of thousands of degrees and extremely sharp. There were even flames like the sun's true fire, which penetrated and cracked his skin, leaving scars and scorching his hair. Zhang Tian felt as if he was in a purgatory of earthly fire. Smoke came out of his throat, his internal organs seemed to be stirred by steel knives, and the blood all over his body seemed to be drying up. However, Zhang Tian had no intention of retreating. When he killed Xianxia, he had already searched his memory with the Soul Devourer and knew that there were at least 3 seeds of spiritual energy recovery in Heavenly Kingdom. These were the life-saving great medicine for Qinger and his baby gluttonous daughter. Zhang Tian must get them. Moreover, although Heavenly Kingdom belonged to the Western Dimension world, it was the same as Stellar Sky Domain before, and they all wanted to encroach on Earth. If Zhang Tian didn't get rid of them, he wouldn't set foot in the ruins of immortality and leave Earth at ease. Moreover, it is said that there is an artificial sun here, which may help me cultivate a fire elemental divine body. This time I must take the risk. Zhang Tian's eyes were calm, but they were extremely determined. Suddenly, his true essence erupted and he shouted, "Break!" Boom. In the space channel, the gung metal divine body exploded, turning into a beam of bright golden light that pierced through heaven and earth, enveloping the sleeping Huang Linger and shooting toward the end of the channel, disappearing in the blink of an eye.